Chapter 845. There were many good things. However, not many of them made Xiao Chen's eyes light up. Occasionally, there were treasures that shone brightly, but they were of no use to Xiao Chen. Even if he managed to obtain them, he could only waste them. Xiao Chen could not help feeling bored again. He asked, "Ao Jiao, the dragon-mark fruits in the Immortal Spirit Ring have reached 700 years of age, right?" "Yes, they have reached that long ago. If I consume the last 10-odd rank 3 spirit veins, I should have no problem reaching 800 years of age in 1 month." Xiao Chen thought for a while before saying, "Never mind. I'll take them out now. Keep the remaining spirit veins origins. I have other uses for them." Although Ao Jiao did not understand, she still did as he said. She flicked her finger, and 5 dragon-mark fruits with alluring spirituality floated out. Xiao Chen placed the dragon-mark fruits beside him. Right now, a casual strike of his could bring his vital qi to 1,150 tons of force. His explosive power could reach 1,180 tons of force, but he was still far from reaching 1,500 tons of force. After he consumed all 5 800-year-old dragon-mark fruits, his explosive power should be close to 1,500 tons of force. The next item to be auctioned is a king-grade secret treasure. This secret treasure was originally an ancient warship from the immortal epic, the Blessed Light Ship. After the Qing Emperor modified it, it became the standard king-grade warship of the Dragon's Gate. After the Dragon's Gate was destroyed, most of the Blessed Light ships were destroyed. This is one of the few that survived. I do not need to explain its significance. The Dragon's Gate's warship starts at 2 million astral coins. Old Hong's words on the auction platform immediately made Xiao Chen, who was preparing to consume the dragon-mark fruits, stop what he was doing. Then he stared at the simple, exquisite, yet tyrannical warship. 2,100,000, 2,200,000, 2,300,000. As soon as the starting price was announced, many fervent bidders immediately surged out from all directions, and every single bid was an increment of 100,000, causing them to seem extremely frenzied. The Blessed Light Ship formed the Dragon's Gate's fleet. It had once followed the Qing Emperor and swept through the world, becoming unrivaled in the starry heavens. In the battles with the demons, it had created countless glory. It was the only king-class warship that was comparable to an emperor-class warship and could be mass-produced. Its combat power was far superior to other king-class warships of the same kind. Aside from the emperor-grade warship, no other warship could compare to it. Be it speed, firepower, or the level of formation runes inscribed, they were all incomparable. Unfortunately, in the final battle of the Sky Dome realm, the unrivaled fleet was completely destroyed. The Qing Emperor also died and left the Kunlun realm. When the Dragon's Gate was at its peak, its headquarters were destroyed. In an instant, the Dragon's Gate collapsed. If not for the fact that there were still some peak major characters who had a good relationship with the Qing Emperor, it would have been a problem for the Shao clan's direct bloodline to continue. The blueprints for the Brahmin Ship of Radiance had disappeared a long time ago. It was truly not easy to find such a ship. The major figures of the various sects were all competing with each other in the hopes that they would be able to replicate it. If they could, then the strength of their sects would definitely increase qualitatively. Only king-grade warships could travel freely in the starry heavens. Such a Dragon's Gate's warship could rival a Grandmaster-level martial sage. The price soared rapidly. Soon, it reached 5 million astral coins. However, there was still an endless stream of people bidding. The bustling scene did not diminish at all. A fanatical flame appeared in Xiao Chen's eyes. "No matter what, I have to buy this Brahmin Ship of Radiance. I have to buy it." Xiao Chen clenched his right fist tightly. However, he thought rationally and did not rush to make a bid. 10 million astral coins. It was unknown who the honored guest in VIP room 7 was, but he called out 10 million astral coins in one go, immediately scaring off several martial sages who followed suit. Only 5 or 6 people with the ability to compete remained. Xiao Chen did not make a move, continuing to observe the situation unhurriedly. When the price continued to soar to 15 million astral coins, only 2 people remained bidding. 15 million astral coins already surpassed the value of a king-grade secret treasure. If not for the Qing Emperor's glorious deeds in the Dragon's Gate and the military merits of the Dragon's Gate's warship, 10 million astral coins would already be an astronomical price. When the price was finally set at 16 million star coins, one of the 2 remaining people could not continue and had no choice but to withdraw with regret. Old Hong revealed a satisfied expression. 16 million astral coins was more or less the price he expected. He could finally strike the gavel and close the deal. 20 million astral coins. Just as Old Hong was about to speak, Xiao Qin, who was in VIP room 7, calmly called out his own bid. The entire place fell silent. The 3 old men in VIP room 10 were slightly stunned. One of them, a white-clad old man, flew into a rage. He had spent so much effort to pay 16 million astral coins. How could he have expected to be instantly outbid at the crucial moment? The 2 old men on the left and right said, "Old Bai, don't be anxious. The 2 of us still have some astral coins on us. It should be enough to help you obtain this worship." The white-clad old man thought quickly, and a sinister expression appeared on his face. He said, "There's no need. It is not worth it to pay more astral coins. I have my own ways." "Good. 20 million astral coins going thrice. This Dragon's Gate's warship, the Blessed Light Ship, goes to the distinguished guest in VIP room 28. Old Hong was slightly stunned. Then he beamed and closed the deal. Inside the VIP room, Xiao Chen smiled faintly. Then he picked up a dragon mark fruit and placed it in his mouth. As he refined the medicinal energy of the dragon mark fruit and nourished his vital qi, he quietly waited for the maidservant to bring up the Dragon's Gate's warship. After refining the 5 dragon mark fruits, Xiao Chen's entire body surged with heat. His vital qi surged like a great river, giving him an inexhaustible supply of vital qi. The glove on his right hand flickered with a jade-white luster. Half of the 5 fingers were exposed. Then Xiao Qin clenched his fist. The crackling of his bones sounded like small claps of thunder, resounding continuously in this average-sized VIP room. A strong wind formed by the surging energy surged wildly in the room. However, under Xiao Chen's control, the wind did not break anything. The exquisite paintings and the paintings on the walls remained intact. Not only did Xiao Chen's vital qi increase, but his control over his strength had also improved. The finer details were even more extraordinary. Creak! The doors to the VIP room opened. A pretty maidservant carried out a jade plate and brought up the blessed light ship. The strong wind in the room immediately found an outlet. It immediately held out like a berserk saber that could break a sharp blade. The pretty maidservant could not help but pale in fright. Under the cloak, Xiao Chen's expression did not change. He quickly opened his tightly clenched right hand, and the strong wind instantly scattered. Only the maiden's clothes and long hair fluttered in the wind. "This esteemed guest, the Dragon's Gate's warship, the Blessed Light Ship, has arrived. Please inspect it." The maidservant calmed herself and carefully walked over. Xiao Qin stretched out his hand, and the 1-meter-long Blessed Light Ship flew over. When Xiao Chen looked carefully, he saw 18 sails on the ship, stacked together densely, occupying most of the ship's surface area. When Xiao Chen extended his spiritual sense, he discovered dense talisman scripts carved on each of the sails. When he scanned them with his spiritual sense, they gave off motes of light. Several blue dragon patterns hidden in the clouds were carved on the 2 sides of the ship looking very realistic. The dragon's eyes looked ferocious, exuding might. The dragon mouth opened slightly and Xiao Qin touched it. Then he closed his eyes and felt it. There was a complicated formation in the innermost part of the ship. There were 18 grooves in the formation. There should be astral cores or peak-grade spirit stones in them. However, they were empty, so the formation could not be activated. Xiao Qin opened his eyes, and the bow of the ship stood straight in front of him. Amid the boundless light, supreme Sanskrit chants rang out. The blue dragon carvings on the two sides of the ship seemed to come to life. A formless dragon roar resounded in Xiao Chen's mind. Good. It is indeed the Dragon's Gate's warship. Furthermore, it is an intact warship. After Xiao Chen inspected the ship, he happily paid the bill. The maidservant smiled as she took out 18 inferior-grade astral cores. Then she said, respectfully, these 18 inferior-grade astral cores are a complimentary gift from our pavilion. There is also this golden VIP card. In the future, as long as you spend money in the Flourishing Heaven Pavilion, you will enjoy VIP treatment. Xiao Qin put away the golden VIP card and the astral cores. After thinking for a while, he said, the Flourishing Heaven Pavilion should have superior-grade astral cores for sale, right? The maidservant nodded and said, naturally we do. One superior-grade astral core costs 100,000 astral coins. However, superior-grade astral cores are one of the few treasures that are not discounted. Even an individual cannot buy more than 20 at a time. I hope this guest can understand. Superior-grade astral cores could only be obtained by hunting extremely high-ranked astral beasts. Not only was the risk high, but the efficiency was also low. Even in the starry heavens, they were extremely rare treasures, all the more so in the profound domain. Xiao Qin knew about this. He waved his hand and said, it's fine. Just give me 20 superior-grade astral cores and 100 medial-grade astral cores. Just as the maidservant was about to leave, Xiao Qin suddenly called out, help me put this transaction on the Ghost Pavilion's heavenly venerate Ing Qiong. It is because of him that I am spending money in the Flourishing Heaven Pavilion. Xiao Chen guessed that there was a lot of competition between heavenly venerates. By doing this, he should be able to help the other party a little. The maidservant's expression changed slightly. She exclaimed, so it turns out that you are an honored guest brought in by a heavenly venerate. I apologize for my lack of manners. I will do as we agreed. 20 superior-grade astral cores and 100 medial-grade astral cores cost Xiao Qin close to 4 million astral coins. Now, the 35 million astral coins he had were less than 10 million. To prevent any changes, after the maidservant left, Xiao Chen started to place a spiritual mark on the Dragon's Gate's warship. When the spiritual mark was completely placed, the 1-meter-long warship paused for a moment and directly entered Xiao Chen's body, merging with his flesh and bones. After the king-grade secret treasure merged with his body, Xiao Chen's aura could not help but gain the weight of time, becoming as heavy as a mountain. Xiao Chen felt excited. He had not expected the Dragon's Gate's warship to have such an effect. When he subdued the reincarnation lamp in the past, there had not been such a huge change. Xiao Chen closed his eyes and remained silent. Then he sat cross-legged in the booth and started to slowly refine the Dragon's Gate's warship, getting the various formations and laws it contained to become more compatible with his body. However, Xiao Chen did not expect to completely refine the warship in one day and achieve 100% compatibility with his body. Chapter 846. If Xiao Chen wanted to completely refine a king-grade secret treasure, he still needed to raise his cultivation. He could not rush this. Soon, the maidservant returned with the astral core. Xiao Chen opened his eyes and thought for a while. Then, he prepared to leave this place immediately. There were many people eyeing this Dragon's Gate's warship. It was hard to guarantee that no one would make a move on him. After making his preparations, Just as he was about to leave, Xiao Qin suddenly noticed the next auction item. It was an extremely rare saber monarch grass, which could improve a bladesman's saber intent. Xiao Qin immediately stopped. He decided to bid for this saber monarch grass before leaving. Little did he know, this decision in the blink of an eye prevented him from getting rid of some trouble. In booth 36, the white-clad old man that Xiao Qin used to instantly destroy the Dragon's Gate's warship held a 9-colored disc in his hand as he continuously formed hand seals. 9 different colored circles were spinning continuously on the round plate. Waves of mysterious energy were surging into the round plate non-stop. The white-clad old man's expression turned extremely grave. His eyebrows were deeply furrowed, looking like a large Chuan character. Kasie! Kasie! Beams of light shot out from the disc, and a scene appeared on the disc. It showed the booth Xiao Qin was in. The scene showed a pretty maidservant bringing the astral core to Xiao Qin. Then, Xiao Qin put away the astral core and prepared to leave. Kasie! The old man stretched out his hand and pointed. The beams of light on the disc gathered and encased Xiao Qin. When the light faded, a green did appeared on the disc, flickering continuously. The white-clad old man relaxed his frown and heaved a sigh of relief. He said, "All right, my heavenly secret divination disc has already planted a trace of heavenly secrets in him. Now, no matter where he runs, he will not be able to escape." The ferocious-looking old man on the left asked, "Why did it take so long? The heavenly secret divination disc? Could it be that the other party sensed that trace of heavenly secrets and took precautions?" The white-clad old man shook his head and said, "No, the cloak he is wearing is somewhat strange. It is ethereal and slippery like a fish. I spent a lot of effort to catch it." The old man on the right said, "This fellow has quite a few good things on him. I wonder which sect's old monster he is from." The 3 of them were inner sect elders of the Heaven and Earth sect. The Heaven and Earth sect did not have any race requirements. They were rather famous in the profound domain and had considerable power. However, they were only slightly weaker than some sects and clans with sovereign martial emperors. The white-clad old man exuded a scholarly aura, looking very righteous. He looked at the heavenly secret divination disc in his hand and sneered, "We are alone. Even the old monsters of other sects will die if they encounter the 3 of us." Inside the private room, Xiao Qin frowned slightly, feeling an inexplicable sense of irritation. He sent out his spiritual sense to check carefully. However, his expression remained unchanged as he continued to bid for the saber monarch herb. Bladesmen were a rather different group of cultivators. Xiao Qin did not have many competitors. He spent 2 million astral coins to successfully purchase this saber monarch grass. After Xiao Qin obtained the saber monarch grass from the maidservant, he did not linger and left this place in a rush. Although Xiao Qin did not sense anything with his spiritual sense, he kept feeling that something was wrong. After leaving the flourishing Heaven Pavilion, Xiao Qin looked around. Then he followed the crowd to the bustling streets, heading out of the city. Young Master Huang, that person left from the side door of the flourishing Heaven Pavilion. He left before the auction ended. In a restaurant across from the flourishing Heaven Pavilion, a youth in embroidered clothes listened to the reports of 2 of his subordinates. This youth was called Huangbai. He was the son of one of the 3 Grand Master alchemists of the Medicine God Valley. His talent in alchemy was extraordinary as well. This time, Huangbai had come with the elders of his sect to make a deal with Ying Qiong. He had sent people to investigate in secret and discovered that Xiao Qin was only an inferior grade martial sage. Hence, he felt evil. Behind the elders of his sect, Huangbai prepared to make a fortune, be it 25 million astral coins, a complete lunar cachet or a peak-grade immortal spirit ring. Any one of these would be sufficient to tempt him. Huangbai nodded and said to the 2 beside him, "He is only an inferior grade martial sage." With the two of you being medial-grade martial sages, you should be more than enough to deal with him. Make your move after you leave the city. I will wait here for your good news." The two obeyed and left. They swallowed a medicinal pill, and their auras immediately vanished. With their mental energy, they found that their cultivation was no different from that of an ordinary person. This was the rarely seen aura-concealing pill. After consuming it, one could hide one's cultivation for 2 hours. Even if the target discovered it, they would not care. After leaving the city, Xiao Qin gently pushed off and landed on the ground in Leisure Feather City. After getting his bearings, he headed for the Tianwu Domain's Haotian sect. There were still many cultivators on the main road. Xiao Qin did not stop moving. However, the further he went, the more he deviated. This made the two cautiously following behind rejoice. If there were fewer people, they would be able to make their move immediately. Suddenly, the two were stunned. When they looked up, they discovered that Xiao Chen's figure had disappeared. Xiao Qin, who was clearly in front of them earlier, suddenly vanished. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two no longer carefully hid themselves. They quickly flew over to where Xiao Qin had disappeared and looked around. Strange, why can't I see him? The two exchanged glances, feeling suspicious in their hearts. Are the two of you looking for me? Suddenly, a voice rang out behind them. The two's figures flashed as they quickly turned around. When they saw Xiao Chun wearing the heavenly sea cloak, who seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, they were extremely astonished. Under the cloak, Xiao Chun revealed a faint smile. His earlier actions and the aura he gave off had exposed the two's cultivation. Just 2 medial-grade martial sages wanted to target him? They were too naive. Xiao Chen's worries turned to nothing. Back in the booth, Xiao Chen had felt that something was wrong. However, he could not detect it. Only when he left the city and checked with his spiritual sense did he see these 2 ordinary people. Only then did he understand. It turned out that there were experts who had consumed medicinal pills to hide their cultivation and were following him. When the 2 medial-grade martial sages saw that they were exposed, they did not say anything more. Their auras burst forth, and a weapon appeared in each of their hands. Then they pressed forward and charged at Xiao Chen. If it were when Xiao Chen had just advanced to martial sage, he would have felt some pressure when facing 2 medial-grade martial sages and would not have dared to attack rashly. However, now that he had not been a medial-grade martial sage for several decades, Xiao Chen would not fear regular medial-grade martial sages. He had too many trump cards he could use. After activating the sovereign bloodline in his body, the horrifying aura that Xiao Chen gained from the rising dragon overlord pill surged out. In an instant, a formless dragon roar resounded behind him. As Xiao Chen's aura soared, the 2 medial-grade martial sages suddenly felt a huge pressure bearing down on them. It was like they were facing an ancient sovereign overlord and not some inferior grade martial sage. When Xiao Chen attacked, openings instantly appeared in his moves. He took a step forward, and his aura was like a mountain pressing forward step by step. Vital qi surged in his right hand. Using his fastest speed, Xiao Chen grabbed hold of the 2's openings and attacked. Bang! 2 crisp sounds of bones breaking resounded. Xiao Chen punched the 2 medial-grade martial sages in the chest and sent them flying into the air. Blood leaked out of their mouths continuously. How can this be? We have rank 1 sage bodies. He shattered our ribs with a casual punch. As the 2 fell to the ground, they saw horror in each other's eyes. Xiao Chen was clearly only an inferior grade martial sage, but the aura that he burst out with instantly suppressed them. His casual punch seemed to have more than 2 million kilograms of vital qi. This was simply horrifying. Xiao Chen did not give the 2 any time to think. He pushed off the ground again, and the 2 wings on his shoulders moved in different trajectories in the air. He moved so fast that only a blurry afterimage and 2 long afterimages could be seen. All the vital qi in Xiao Chen's body surged like a flood, surging endlessly. With a casual punch, he could achieve 1,600,000 kilograms of force. Occasionally, he would explode with a force that could approach 1,500,000 kilograms of force. The sound of his fists tearing through space was like a clap of thunder in the two's ears, causing their ears to buzz. The ripples in the air even affected the two's movements. Fighting 1 against 2, Xiao Qin held the absolute upper hand. The two could not see Xiao Chen's movements clearly. They could only see two undulating streams of energy spinning in the air. Xiao Qin turned into many afterimages. As he attacked, his fists flickered, forcing the two back several times. In less than 100 moves, Xiao Qin severely injured these two and made them vomit blood. They became incredibly weak and fell to the ground, unable to get up again. Xiao Qin stopped moving, and all the afterimages slowly vanished, revealing his true body. He said coldly, "With your insignificant cultivation, you dare to target my Dragon's Gates warship? I really don't know how to evaluate you." "What Dragon's Gates warship? We are the Medicine God Valley's people. You'd best let us go. Otherwise, with the Medicine God Valley's connections, there will be no place for you in this world." The two people on the ground spoke intermittently, trying to use the Medicine God Valley's position to pressure Xiao Qin. When Xiao Qin heard this, his expression changed drastically. However, it was not because of the Medicine God Valley, but because they did not know about the Dragon's Gates warship. In that case, the strong enemy that made Xiao Qin feel strangely frustrated was someone else. Haha! Unexpectedly, the one who won the Dragon's Gates warship alone is actually a little friend. A voice resounded in the air. Xiao Qin looked up and saw a white-clad old man slowly descending from the sky. He looked around and saw two other old men in two other directions, sealing off his escape routes. Xiao Qin checked the cultivation of the three old men, and his heart immediately sank. Unexpectedly, all of them were bona fide superior-grade martial sages. The white-clad old man looked at Xiao Qin and said sullenly, "Hand over the Dragon's Gates warship and the cloak you are wearing, and I can spare your life." Xiao Qin carefully sized up the white-clad old man in front. Then he glanced at the two old men in the other two directions. One of them looked ferocious and wore black robes. He had an indistinct, sinister smile on his face. The other wore green robes and had a skinny face with a small goatee. Xiao Qin committed the appearances of the three to memory and evaluated their strengths. Then he came up with a rough countermeasure. Chapter 847. Xiao Qin raised his head and looked calmly at the other party. Then he grasped something with his right hand and said, "Sir, have you heard of the saying before? It is better to bully an old man than to offend a young man. The river flows east for 30 years, then west for 30 years. Today, you rely on your age and cultivation to suppress me with numbers. Have you ever thought about your future?" The expressions of the three old men could not help but freeze. Unexpectedly, after Xiao Qin saw the three of them, he did not panic. Instead, he remained strangely calm and said such words. The white-clad old man snorted coldly and said, "Junior, you overestimate yourself. You might scare most people. This old man is an inner sect elder of the Heaven and Earth sect. Emperor Wu is in the sect. Even if you become Emperor Wu in the future, what can you do to me?" "Cut the crap. Hand over the Dragon's Gates warship and your cloak, and I'll let you live. Otherwise, you can forget about leaving today." Xiao Chen's gaze turned cold. He raised his head and said, "In that case, I will stand here. Let's see how you will not let me live." Xiao Chen's aura clashed fearlessly. The aura of an overlord allowed Xiao Qin to fight 1 against 3 without any pressure. The clash of auras created intense shock waves that held endlessly in the air. The wind howled deafeningly. When the white-clad old man saw the fearless Xiao Chen's sharpness, he felt bewildered. He did not know what gave Xiao Qin the confidence to remain so calm at this moment. "You are just bluffing. You're just bluffing. Let's see how long you can keep up the act." The white-clad old man steeled himself. He did not think that with 3 superior-grade martial sages here, they could not do anything to an insignificant, inferior-grade martial sage. That would be a huge joke. The white-clad old man's figure wavered, and 2 beams of light, one black and one white, flickered around him. Then he charged at Xiao Qin as fast as a meteor. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and released his tightly clenched right hand. Many superior-grade astral cores gave off dazzling light like flowers scattering in the sky, encasing him. Bang! The 20 superior-grade astral cores gave off a bright light. When Xiao Chen infused his energy into them, they exploded. The energy contained in one inferior-grade astral core could injure an inferior-grade martial sage. The might of 50 superior-grade astral cores exploding together was easy to imagine. Intense explosions blended together, shaking heaven and earth as surging shock waves swept out. The white-robed old man, who was charging forward at an extremely fast speed, was simply unable to dodge and was directly hit by the explosion. The white-robed old man came quickly and left even faster. His clothes were completely blown away, leaving behind only a saint-grade inner armor. His hair was in a mess, and his skin was a bloody mess. It was an extremely horrifying sight. His scholarly temperament was completely gone. A second ago he was still in high spirits, but in the next second he was in a sorry state. Although his internal and external injuries were not fatal, his combat power was reduced by at least 50% in a short period of time. The other 2 old men were greatly startled. Clearly, they had not expected Xiao Qin to consume such a precious, superior-grade astral core in one go. And it wasn't just 1 or 2, it was a total of 20. Whoosh! A light flashed. Right after the explosion ended, an electric light appeared under Xiao Chen's feet. His figure shot forward, and he kicked the white-robed old man who had just landed back 1 kilometer. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chen sent a bona fide superior-grade martial sage flying with a casual kick. After him, the 2 old men reacted and casually summoned out a spirit beast. Then they carried the white-robed old man in the direction that Xiao Qin had taken, giving chase. The white-robed old man coughed intensely a few times. Then he changed into a new set of clothes. After recuperating for a long time, his injured face recovered somewhat. "Old Bai, are you all right?" The ferocious-looking black-robed old man could not help asking. The might of 20 superior-grade astral cores exploding struck the black-robed old man. Just thinking about it made him tremble in fear. Fortunately, Old Bai wore a peak sage grade defensive inner armor. Furthermore, Old Bai's physical body was already a rank 2 sage body. Not to mention anyone else. Even if it were the black-robed old man, it would be pretty good if he could still breathe. Old Bai's expression turned sullen. He did not answer the old man's question. Instead, he took out the heavenly secret divination disc and looked at it. Then he raised his head and said, "Turn around. This brat is really crafty." Unexpectedly, he circled around behind us. If I didn't have the heavenly secret divination plate, I would have really let that guy slip away. The green-robed old man controlling the spirit beast waved his hand, and the huge bird he sat on spread its wings. A strong wind blew, scattering the white clouds. Then the bird sped towards the spot of light on the heavenly secret divination disc. This bird was called the White Rock. It possessed the bloodline of the legendary Kuan-Peng and could fly very fast. In the entire heaven and earth sect, there were only 2 of them, 1 male and 1 female. Xiao Qin executed the Thunder Dragon Steps to its limits. Using the heavenly sea cloak's speed, he managed to leave the 3 far behind several times. However, when he slowed down, the other party immediately caught up. This was extremely strange. Xiao Qin carefully checked his body and did not find anything that had been tampered with. Left with no choice, he asked Ao Jiao. Ao Jiao, are there any secret treasures that can figure out the position of others or leave a mark on you that you cannot shake off? Ao Jiao quickly answered, there are many. I know a few. The divine calculation and manipulation, the ask-not mirror, the 8 trigrams derivation diagram, the heavenly secret divination disc. Xiao Qin could not help but stop. When he saw the black spot appear behind him again, he could not help but frown. He said, "It looks like I really fell for it. No wonder I felt something was wrong at the flourishing Heaven Pavilion. Actually, there is no need to worry. You have the Haotian martial emperors will clone. You can instantly kill these people," Ao Jiao said without much concern. Xiao Qin shook his head and said, "I can't. I can only use the martial emperors will clone in desperate situations. Right now, I am still far from it. They are just superior grade martial sages. I already used 20 superior grade astral cores. How can I waste the will clone? What do you plan to do then? There is no way to run." "That might not be the case." Xiao Chun looked up at the clear sky and summoned out the Dragon's Gate's warship, making it quickly grow larger. He said, "Let's go to the starry heavens and head directly to the Haotian star. I don't believe that 3 superior grade martial sages will dare to go through the barrier of the sky with me." Xiao Chun gently leaped up and landed on the deck of the Dragon's Gate's warship. Then he quickly went into the hold and placed 18 inferior grade astral cores in the grooves of the formation. A light flickered, and the entire warship immediately came to life. It was like a huge, sleeping dragon awakening from a dream, filled with boundless energy. With his spiritual sense, Xiao Qin could feel every part of the warship. It was like this warship was his incarnation. With a thought, he could control it as he pleased. Unfortunately, he had only refined it for one day and could not bring out much of its combat prowess. Otherwise, with this warship, Xiao Chun would be able to easily kill off the pursuers. Whoosh! Xiao Chun appeared on the deck and controlled the warship to fly up continuously 10 kilometers to 20 kilometers, heading for the formless barrier of the sky. Oh no! This fellow is going to use the Dragon's Gate's warship to go through the barrier of the sky. The ferocious-looking old man on the white rock said with an unsightly expression. It looked like Xiao Chun was about to catch up, but he soared higher and higher. Without a king-grade warship, one would have to be a Grandmaster-level martial sage to break through the barrier of the sky. The white-robed old man, who held the heavenly secret divination disc in his hand, showed an uncertain expression. As he watched the Dragon's Gate's warship slowly break through the barrier of the sky, he showed a conflicted expression. The 3 bona fide superior grade martial sages personally made a move. In the end, not only did they fail to catch up to Xiao Qin, but they even got tricked by him. Without half a year of recuperation, they would not be able to recover to their peak. I planted a strand of the heavens in him. I don't believe that he will never return to the Kunlun realm, the white-robed old man said hatefully when he saw that he could no longer catch up to Xiao Qin. The Dragon's Gate's warship passed through the barrier of the sky. When the white-robed old man saw that he could no longer catch up to Xiao Qin, he could not help but say this hatefully. A faint azure barrier encased the Dragon's Gate's warship, preventing the chaotic flows of space in the starry heavens from invading. Chapter 848. As Xiao Chen stood on the deck, he turned his head back and glanced at the formless barrier of the sky. He felt startled. He wondered where the Immortal Epoch got such a grand feat to create such a huge barrier surrounding the entire Kunlun realm. What kind of enemies were they dealing with? Could it be just astral beasts? When Xiao Chun thought about it, that should not be possible. The highest-ranked astral beast, the Destroyer, was only slightly stronger than a sovereign martial emperor. During the Immortal Epoch, those powerhouses would not have been frightened by these astral beasts. Hence, Xiao Chen somewhat disagreed with the views of the later generations. Everyone believed that the barrier of the sky was to prevent astral beasts. It was just that the peak of the martial epoch had passed. To them, astral beasts were horrifying existences that could not be dealt with. Once Xiao Chun descended to the Kunlun realm, there would be a great calamity. He used his own strength to consider the thoughts of the ancient people of the immortal epoch. The star beasts that were a headache in the eyes of the warriors might not be a problem in the eyes of the immortal cultivators. The real trouble might come from a more distant starry sky. Retracting his gaze, Xiao Qin shifted his gaze to the vast sea of stars. Being in the starry sky of the universe, all he felt was insignificance. Xiao Chen was slightly troubled. He had heard that the Haotian planet was only 10,000 miles away from the barrier of the sky. Moreover, most of the sect's bases were at this distance. Even if they couldn't find the Haotian planet after breaking through the barrier of the sky, they would still be able to find the bases of the other sections. That way, they wouldn't be lost in space. However, when he came out, he realized that he was gravely mistaken. As far as the eye could see, all he could see were stars, innumerable and endless. There were all kinds of them, big and small, and it completely exceeded his expectations. There were also other things in the star state, such as the asteroid belts, the river of light, and the black holes. Once trapped in those forbidden areas, one would definitely die. At this moment, he finally understood the importance of a star chart. Without a star chart, it would be impossible to move an inch in the Milky Way. Back then, when Xiao Chun followed the heavenly battle palace's 2 palace masters, he felt that the journey was very peaceful. Occasionally he encountered trouble, but he easily dodged it. Now that he was steering the ship through the starry skies, it didn't feel like that at all. Don't worry, there should be a starry sky relay station nearby. Since I didn't reject your decision to enter the starry sky, there must be a way out. Ao Jiao's voice rang out the right time, which calmed Xiao Qin down. Xiao Qin did not dare to act rashly. He only let the Dragon's Gate's warship drift with the chaotic space. He asked, "What is a starry heaven relay station? How come I have never heard of it before?" Ao Jiao smiled and said, "With your experience, naturally you have not heard of this before. Grandmaster-level martial sages and above already possess the basic strength to travel the starry heavens alone. The Starry Heavens Relay Station is a place for these Grandmaster-level martial sages and above to stay. Some were established by independent martial artists, purely for the sake of appreciating the beautiful scenery of the starry sky, or for personal romantic pursuits. The establishment of this kind of starry sky relay station is relatively simple. It only needs the fixing starstone and an array formation that can roughly defend against starry sky meteorites and cosmic storms. There is another type that is more specialized. It is the relay stations established by the large factions. Their relay stations are spread throughout the Kunlun realm's starry heavens, allowing people to travel back and forth between relay stations. These relay stations are very resistant to cosmic storms and the various unknown dangers of the starry heavens. Xiao Qin now understood a little. It looked like the world of the starry heavens was much more marvelous than he had imagined. However, how should he find these starry heaven relay stations? Ao Jiao noticed Xiao Chen's doubts. She smiled and said, "Without a star chart, you will not be able to find the relay stations. Don't act rashly for now. Just let the Dragon's Gate's warship circle around the barrier of the sky. Sooner or later, you will run into a starry heaven relay station." There are many starry heaven relay stations established by independent martial artists around the barrier of the sky. There is no need to worry about not being able to find one. Not having a star chart was really problematic. However, since Xiao Qin had already made his decision, it was not time to regret it. He perked himself up and asked, "How long do I have to wait?" "Don't worry, it will not take long. Those starry heaven relay stations all have fixing starstones. They are fixed in place in the starry heavens. As long as you circle the barrier of the sky, you will run into one sooner or later. Furthermore, it will be very easy to discover them." When Xiao Qin saw this, he did not ask any further. Instead, he reflected on his experiences on this trip. Now that Xiao Chen had reached his current cultivation realm, he could no longer limit himself to the younger generation. Martial sages were already roughly at the top of the pyramid. The number of older generation experts that Xiao Chen would have to face would increase. He had to consider these experts that he could only look up to in the past. In the future, it would be normal for him to run into superior grade martial sages or even grandmaster level martial sages. When he ran into such experts, he would have to think carefully about how to deal with them and how to protect himself. He also had to prepare some trump cards that would allow him to escape easily from these experts. After a while, Xiao Qin took out the saber monarch grass. He planned to use this time to absorb the saber intent contained in it. There was a dangerous place in the Kunlun continent called Heavenly Thunder Peak. During the ancient era, a powerful saber emperor comprehended his Tao here. Eventually, he successfully broke through and became a sovereign saber monarch. After that, he mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind many legends in the Kunlun continent. Some said that he became an illusory martial god. Others said that he died long ago. Aside from the legends, there was a kind of very ordinary grass growing on the heavenly snow peak where that saber emperor comprehended his Tao. However, the instant that saber emperor advanced to sovereign martial emperor, this grass mutated, storing the saber intent that he inadvertently leaked. This grass became very precious. Furthermore, it continued to grow. Every time spring arrived, there would be many martial sages going to fight for the saber monarch grass. Xiao Chen placed the saber monarch grass in his palm and circulated his spiritual sense. Then he closed his eyes and started to absorb the saber intent contained in the grass. Buzz! 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 Buzzing saber intent resounded in Xiao Chen's sea of consciousness. Thousands of strands of saber intent scattered everywhere, kicking up huge waves in his sea of consciousness. Every strand of saber intent was surging and terrifying. The waves in his sea of consciousness made Xiao Chen tremble for some reason. With some effort, Xiao Chen merged the saber intent in the saber monarch grass with the saber intent that he comprehended. The saber intent in the grass was too tyrannical and ferocious. The process was very slow. However, Xiao Chen gained a lot. With every strand of saber intent that the saber monarch left behind, Xiao Chen could feel his saber intent improving significantly. When all the strands of saber intent were collected, Xiao Chen's 80% comprehension had reached peak 90% comprehension. The originally formless saber intent in Xiao Chen's sea of consciousness could be vaguely seen. An indistinct small saber floated in the sea of consciousness. This should be the shape of the saber soul. When one saber intent reached 100% comprehension, it would undergo a qualitative change, giving birth to a soul. Swordsmen had a sword soul, and bladesmen had a saber soul. When a cultivator comprehended a soul, when they executed various martial techniques with their weapons, the sharpness of the weapons would be able to pierce one's heart, making them tremble in fear. The saber techniques they executed would be much sharper. However, it was not that simple to condense a soul. Out of 10,000 bladesmen, only one would comprehend saber intent. Of those who comprehended saber intent, only 1 in 10,000 would be able to condense a saber soul. One could easily imagine how difficult it was to comprehend a saber soul. The saber intent in the saber monarch grass in Xiao Chen's palm drained, turning into withered grass and disappearing. Xiao Chen opened his eyes, and with a thought, his gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the boundless starry heavens. It was incredibly sharp, deterring others from looking directly at him. Xiao Chen raised his head and looked around. Then he asked, Ao Jiao, how long did I take to absorb the saber intent? Ao Jiao counted on her fingers. Then she said about half a month. Hee, I even missed a starry sky relay station. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and said, let's head back. I don't want to drift anymore. You should remember the route to that Starry Sky Relay Station, right? Naturally, I'll help you remember it. Turning the bow of the warship around, Xiao Qin controlled the 18 sails of the Dragon's Gate's warship to advance at full speed in the direction AO, Jiao pointed out. The 8 jets at the stern of the warship released a scarlet tail of flames. The Dragon's Gate's warship was like a blue dragon soaring through the clouds in the starry heavens, looking very imposing. In less than half a day, a jade-green spot of light appeared in Xiao Chen's vision. That was the unique light of the star-fixing stone. It was unique in the boundless universe. Xiao Chen's face lit up in joy. He could not help but increase his speed. The talisman scripts on the sails flickered with light as they buzzed. The star-fixing stone was one of the top 100 stones on the Starry Heavens Strange Stone ranking. It did not provide any practical help to cultivators. Its wondrous use lay in the word fix. Any object connected to the star-fixing stone would be firmly fixed in space. No matter how strong the starry heavens storm was, it would not be able to blow it away. This was because it was already connected to the structure of that space. The star-fixing stone was the foundation of a starry heavens relay station. Without the star-fixing stone, there would be no starry heavens relay station. A relay station that always drifted in the starry heavens would not be of any help to cultivators on an adventure. The price of the star-fixing stone was based on its size. A palm-sized star-fixing stone would cost a regular superior grade Marshall Sage 10 years of savings. The larger the star-fixing stone, the more expensive it would be. That jade-green spot of light slowly closed in on Xiao Qin. When it was 5 kilometers away, Xiao Qin, who was on the bow, could already see the relay station clearly. Although it was called a relay station, it was actually a mountain peak that had been chopped off and turned upside down. All sorts of buildings had been erected on that flat platform. The jade-green light came from the inverted, triangular ground below. The star-fixing stone was probably embedded in the core of this triangle. This starry heavens relay station was very small, no more than 1 kilometer in radius. With Xiao Chen's cultivation, he could circle it 4 or 5 times in one breath. The buildings on the platform were very simple. Aside from a shop, a few wooden houses, and a courtyard, the other places were all planted with flowers and trees. 2 old men sat at a stone table in the courtyard, drinking tea and playing Go. Not far away, a girl about 7 or 8 years old practiced her saber alone. The entire scene looked very harmonious. Xiao Qin put away the Dragon's Gate's warship. Then he stood on 2 clumps of electric light. In a flash, he arrived at the top of the platform and was blocked by a formless restriction. The 2 old men glanced at Xiao Qin and did not pay him any more attention. However, the girl practicing the sword shouted in a tender voice, "Daddy! Daddy! There is a guest! Business is here!" Chapter 849. Whoosh! A jade pendant flew out from below, passing through the restriction and flying toward Xiao Qin. Xiao Qin stretched out his hand and grabbed it. Then he passed through the restriction without any obstruction. When the girl saw the cloaked Xiao Qin, she felt very curious. She stared at Xiao Qin with her large eyes. A lazy voice came from the shop in the courtyard. It said, "Little girl, don't get distracted. Continue practicing the saber." The girl giggled and made a funny face. Clearly, she was not afraid of the person speaking. However, she still obediently continued practicing the saber. The girl did not hold a real saber in her hand. Instead, it was just a saber carved from bamboo. While it looked very proper, it was actually full of openings. When Xiao Qin saw the scene, he smiled faintly. Unexpectedly, he could see such a leisurely scene in the deep starry heavens. It made him feel calm for some reason. Xiao Qin stepped forward and arrived at the shop. There were some old miscellaneous items on the shelves. Clearly, no one had touched them for a long time. Behind the counter was a middle-aged man with a long beard. There was a startling scar on this man's face and 2 thick eyebrows. One could still vaguely see the sharpness of the past. This person's appearance perfectly described the word ferocious. However, at this moment he held a small teapot to his lips in his right hand and a book in his left. He looked very refined. In Xiao Chen's sea of consciousness, the vague, wrinkled, 90% comprehended saber intent suddenly trembled as though it had seen something very scary. The relay station's owner raised his head and exclaimed softly. Then he smiled and said, "Your presence brings light to my humble dwelling." Unexpectedly, a demonic genius of the younger generation came to this run-down place. Furthermore, you are a pretty good bladesman. The owner's words did not contain the shock that most people would show when they saw a genius. Instead, it was more of a mocking and joking tone, an indifference that came from being accustomed to the world of mortals. Xiao Chen felt some fear in his heart. This person was not simple. Not only did he have an unfathomable cultivation, but he was also a very strong bladesman. "Senior, do you sell star maps here?" Xiao Chen asked from under his hood. When it came to business, the owner of the relay station put down the ancient book in his hand and forced himself to be spirited. However, there was still a hint of laziness in his voice. "Star Atlas, how big do you want to be? What level of Star Atlas do you want? Different levels have different prices." Xiao Chen thought for a moment and said, "Just give me the most ordinary one." "Then it's a primitive one. 100,000 star coins, no bargaining." The relay station owner tossed over a jade slip. Xiao Chen caught it and sent his spiritual sense into it. Instantly, a vast three-dimensional map of the starry sky appeared in his mind. On the star map, the major relay stations were marked. Planets with sects stationed on them would also be marked with words. Dangerous places would be marked with color, and there were even simple text descriptions. Unknown forbidden lands were marked with a simple question mark. This star map was much more detailed than the one that Xiao Chen had seen in the past. Soon, Xiao Chen found the location of planet Haotian. Then he quickly drew a route from here to planet Haotian in his mind. Xiao Chen withdrew his spiritual sense, and he revealed an expression of joy. He happily paid 100,000 astral coins and prepared to leave. However, the relay station owner stopped him and said, "Young man, you still have something that you have not given me." Xiao Chen was stunned for a while. Then he recalled that the other party had tossed him a jade pendant at the start. After thinking for a while, he did not rush to return it. He said, "I see that Senior's relay station does not seem to be marked on this star map. If Senior takes this jade pendant away, it will not be easy to find this place in the future." However, the relay station owner smiled and said, "This is a small place in the first place. I only do business with some friends. If not for your young age and the fact that you are a bladesman, I would not have let you in." Xiao Chen wanted to make friends with this person. He wanted to keep the jade pendant with him, so he thought about how to broach the subject. "Xiao Chen, most of these starry heaven relay stations were once famous people of the Sky Dome realm. They were tired of the fighting and killing of the cultivator world and retired to the starry heavens, putting an end to all worldly grudges. Normally, they do not wish to be disturbed by others." Ao Jiao explained softly from the Immortal Spirit Ring. When Xiao Chen heard this, he could not help but feel sad. It was rare for him to meet a true bladesman expert. If he missed this opportunity, it would be a pity. "This humble one has been rude and disturbed you." Xiao Chen was rather straightforward. After he heard Ao Jiao's explanation, he did not say anything more and directly handed over the jade pendant. The relay station owner smiled faintly and received the jade pendant. He said, "You are rather open-minded. I know what you are thinking. If you can drift to this place again in the future, we will be truly fated. At that time, we can have a good chat." Xiao Chen performed a cupped fist salute and left this place. As the middle-aged man watched Xiao Chen leave, he sighed softly. After not appearing for so many years, the Kunlun realm unexpectedly produced such a young, outstanding talent. The relay station owner shook his head and picked up the teapot with his mouth. Then he leaned back on the chair and continued reading. With the guidance of the star chart, Shao Chun piloted the Dragon's Gate's warship and flew through the starry heavens. He immediately felt much happier. Half a month later, Shao Chun successfully descended on planet Haotian and arrived at the base of the Haotian sect. When the various elders saw Shao Chun's true body, they all revealed joyful expressions. This was especially so for Shui Lingling. Although she had received Shao Chun's voice projection and knew that he was safe, she only relaxed when she saw him in person. When the various elders left, leaving only Shui Lingling and the first elder, Han Qinghe, Shao Chun spoke of his purpose. What? You want to return to the Sky Dome realm at this crucial moment? Did I hear wrong? The usually calm Han Qinghe was extremely shocked when he heard this, somewhat unable to accept it. Shui Lingling also showed a confused expression. She asked, "Junior brother, why?" Now is the start of the age of geniuses. All sorts of ancient, wondrous lands will appear one after another. There will be endless fortuitous encounters. No younger generation genius would let go of such an opportunity. Why are you thinking of returning to the Sky Dome realm? Han Qinghe continued. Furthermore, the spiritual energy of the Sky Dome realm is very thin. With your luck and talent, going there will be a waste of time. If you get left behind by the other geniuses, it will be very difficult to catch up. Shao Chun had already made up his mind long ago. He said calmly, "I know what you are talking about. However, my cultivation technique has reached a critical juncture. There are things in the Sky Dome realm that I have yet to resolve. If I cannot resolve this knot in my heart, it will be hard for me to undergo a heart tribulation. Furthermore, I really want to go and meet some of my old friends in the Sky Dome realm. I have to return on this trip. Otherwise, the regrets in my heart will remain forever." The first elder, Han Qinghe, and the first senior sister, Shui Lingling, tried to dissuade him. However, Shao Chun had already made up his mind and did not budge. Han Qinghe shook his head helplessly and said, "Never mind. Since you are so determined, it is not good for me to say anything more. However, everything has to be done according to the rules. If you want to use the Haotian sect's transportation formation, you have to go to another realm. The inner sect elders can use it for free once every 10 years. The first elder and the vice sect master can use it at will. Given your qualifications, you will not be able to enjoy this. Shao Chun, you can understand this, right?" Shao Chun nodded to indicate that he understood. Traveling between realms required a significant number of astral cores. Furthermore, they were all superior grade astral cores. Naturally, the sect's resources could not be wasted. Good. 2 trips back and forth will cost a total of 5 million astral coins. This is the best discount we can give you, Han Qinghe said sullenly. 1 trip would require at least 50 superior grade astral cores. Elder Han was already giving Shao Chun a lot of face by only offering this condition. Shui Lingling still wanted to salvage the situation. She said, "Junior brother, after you go back, I believe that you will not be able to return within a year. 1 year is sufficient for many things to change." Shao Chun performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Many thanks to First Elder and Senior Sister for asking me to stay. However, my situation is rather special. I cannot resolve this, not in my heart or clear my heart tribulation. To me, this is just a form of cultivation. It does not matter where I am." Haha, what a great nod in your heart and clear your heart tribulation. This time I'll send you off. Suddenly, a carefree voice rang out in the air. When Elder Han and Shui Lingling heard this, their expressions changed. The sect master actually arrived. Space rippled like water, and a crack appeared. Then the Haotian Emperor's figure slowly walked out. He released his emperor's might and withdrew it immediately, not putting any pressure on the group. The Haotian emperor smiled gently and landed on the ground. Then he said warmly, "Qinghe Lingling, you really don't have to worry about Shaoqin. He will have his own fortuitous encounters when he returns." The Haotian emperor shifted his gaze and stared at Shaoqin. In that instant, it felt like the other party could see through every inch of Xiao Chen's body, including his internal organs, and every inch of his flesh. "Although I'm not sure what cultivation technique you are cultivating, the bottleneck of this cultivation technique should have been troubling you for a long time, right?" Before Xiao Qin came to the Kunlun realm, the purple thunder divine incantation had already reached the 6th layer. Now that more than 2 years had passed, he was still stuck at the 6th layer. This had long since affected his cultivation speed. The Haotian emperor's eyes were as sharp as torches. He could tell with one glance. Xiao Chen answered honestly. There was no need for him to hide much from the Haotian emperor. "Yes, it has been more than 2 years. This bottleneck requires me to undergo 2 tribulations, the external lightning tribulation and the internal heart tribulation. Honestly speaking, I am not confident of clearing them." Han Qinghe and Shui Lingling exchanged glances, feeling confused. They had heard of lightning tribulations before. Greater Heavenly Emperor Wu had to undergo 9 layers of lightning tribulations before he could become a sovereign martial emperor. There were also some cultivation techniques that surpassed heaven ranked that required one to face lightning tribulations at the end. However, they had never heard of a heart tribulation. What cultivation technique did Xiao Qin cultivate? Could it be even more horrifying than those cultivation techniques that surpassed heaven ranked? Suddenly, the Haotian emperor asked, "Xiao Qin, when did someone plant a strand of heavenly fate in your body? Your journey back must have been very difficult, right?" Xiao Qin organized his thoughts and explained what happened. "The people of the Heaven and Earth sect? I'll help you erase this strand of heavenly fate first. Then, I'll settle the score with that group of old fellows. They know that you are from my Haotian sect, yet they still dared to make a move on you." A murderous intent flashed in the eyes of the Haotian emperor. Boundless clouds churned endlessly in the depths of his eyes. Rings of light flickered within them, materializing the might of the Haotian emperor. The Haotian emperor stretched out his hand, wanting to erase the strand of heavenly fate in Xiao Chen's body. Xiao Qin quickly waved his hand and said, "Sect Master, those 3 people do not know my identity. I do not intend to erase this strand of heavenly fate." Chapter 850. The moment the Haotian emperor heard this, he understood Xiao Chen's meaning. He smiled and said, "It looks like you want to do it yourself. Very well, in that case, I will not make the decision on my own. I still have to discuss this with the Sky Dome Realm's Haotian sect. I will come and look for you 3 days from now. You should use these few days to make your preparations." Words cannot express my gratitude for this great favor. Xiao Qin performed a cupped fist salute. With the Haotian emperor making a move, Xiao Chen would be able to save a lot of resources. However, all this was just an empty promise. It was more of an indication of the Haotian emperor's attitude. While the others were still hesitating, the Haotian emperor did not hesitate to step forward to support Xiao Chen. He was betting on Xiao Chen's future, betting that Xiao Chen would be able to bring back the glory of the Qing emperor. He was betting that his judgment was right. He had already made all the necessary preparations. Actually, Xiao Chen did not have much to do. After learning that Yu Chenxi and Gong Yangyu had been sent to the Heavenly Battle Palace to cultivate as true inheritors, Xiao Chen sought them out and informed them of his purpose. This was within their expectations. The 2 had not dared to imagine that Xiao Chen would go to the Sky Dome realm at such a crucial time. Right now, the 2 of them were in the Heavenly Battle Palace. Their cultivations had advanced by leaps and bounds, already reaching half-sage. Furthermore, they had heard that the Haotian emperor would forcefully break open the barrier of the savage battlefield half a month from now, giving everyone a chance to seek fortuitous encounters and see if they could find an opportunity to advance to martial sage. There were endless fortuitous encounters and endless fortuitous encounters. If they were lucky enough, they would have a chance to rise again on this stage. If the two returned to the Sky Dome realm at this moment, they would definitely not agree. When the two learned that Xiao Chun had made up his mind, they each left a message and some resources for him to bring to their clans. 3 days later, the Haotian emperor arrived as promised, appearing before Xiao Qin. The Haotian emperor closed his eyes, trying hard to sense something. Streams of mental energy pierced through the void, shooting toward an unknown place. Moments later, the Haotian great emperor opened his eyes. In the void, he saw figures formed by light and shadows. Each of them looked like a deity, and they seemed to be able to destroy the earth with just a lift of their hands. Qi, Zhang Xian pointed forward, and the flashing figure in front of him came to a halt. It was a handsome man who wore a jade robe made of gold and had a purple fork on his head. Judging from his appearance, he looked very much like the Taoist priest of the Immortal Court that Xiao Qin had met in his previous life. Found it, let's go. A smile appeared on the Haotian emperor's face. With a wave of his hand, the handsome man dissipated into light, and a golden gate appeared behind him. Dense talisman scripts were carved on the gate, and a purple talisman was stuck between the cracks of the gate. The Haotian emperor shouted and punched. The talisman shattered, and the gate opened. The Haotian emperor extended his hand and led Xiao Qin in. A dark passage of time appeared, and the two moved at the speed of light. That person earlier was the Sky Dome Immortal Lord. During the Immortal Epoch, the Sky Dome realm was his residence. He was also the strongest Immortal Lord of the 3,000 Immortal Lords. As the Haotian emperor flew forward, he spoke softly. This startled Xiao Qin. Clearly, he had not expected the Haotian emperor to tell him such a secret. The 3,000 great realms were actually the residences of the 3,000 Immortal Lords during the Immortal Epoch. The Haotian emperor smiled faintly and said, "There's no need to make a fuss over nothing." The Immortal Lords were already the peak experts of the Immortal Epoch. The only ones stronger than the Immortal Lords were the Immortal Emperors. As for the residents turning into a great 1,000 realms, there is nothing strange about that. When one reaches Emperor Wu's level and comprehends heavenly laws, one can create a small world of one's own with some effort. There's no other meaning in telling you all this. Sooner or later, you will advance to Emperor Wu. Then, you will be able to personally tear open the gates of the Sky Dome Immortal Lord's residence. As they spoke, Xiao Chun felt a familiar aura. It seemed like he was about to reach the Sky Dome realm. Boom! A spatial tear opened, and the scene before Xiao Qin changed. He arrived at the summit of the great Jin Nation's Haotian sect in the Sky Dome realm. Inside the spatial tear, the Haotian emperor waved his hand and smiled. Due to some agreements, Emperor Wu cannot appear in the Sky Dome realm. I will not be going out. When we meet again, let me see a reborn you. The spatial tear closed, and the space-time tunnel opened by the Haotian emperor closed completely. Xiao Qin looked around. When he felt the spiritual energy in the air, he felt extremely uncomfortable. He smiled bitterly and said, "The difference is really obvious. Cultivating in the Sky Dome realm is probably not even half as good as cultivating in the Kunlun realm. Be it quality or quantity, the difference is too great." Whoosh! A figure flew over from below. Xiao Qin scanned with a spiritual sense and clearly saw the appearance of this person. This person was the Supreme Elder of the Sky Dome Realms Haotian sect, Senior Feng. This was also the Senior Feng who had sent Xiao Qin and Yu Chenxi to the Kunlun realm. He could be considered an old acquaintance of Xiao Qin. Xiao Qin did not dare to put on any airs before this person. Electric light flashed under his feet, and he rushed over to welcome him. It's you. Why are you back? When Senior Feng saw Shao Qin, his eyes were filled with shock. He had only heard that the Kunlun realm's main sect had an honored guest. Furthermore, the Haotian emperor had personally sent him over. Unexpectedly, the one who came was Shao Qin. Furthermore, after not seeing Shao Qin for 2 years, Shao Qin had actually advanced to martial sage. Shao Qin's cultivation was so deep that even Senior Feng could not see through it. Shao Qin performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Greetings, Senior Feng." Senior Feng smiled bitterly and said, "How could I dare to address myself as senior? Just address me as Senior Feng. Come, follow me to a room first." Shao Qin looked around and thought of something. Feeling it was strange, he asked, "What's wrong?" "The Haotian sect master is not around." "Why did Senior Feng come over?" Senior Feng was a supreme elder. In terms of seniority, his position was even higher than the sect masters. Since Senior Feng had appeared, it was strange that the sect master had not. Senior Feng smiled and said, "Little brother Shao Qin, you came at a good time. The frost flood dragon guarding the heaven and earth tomb in Desolate City is undergoing its tribulation again. Rumor has it that this time the frost flood dragon will either fail and die or advance further, turning into a dragon and leaving this world. Either way, it will not be able to continue guarding the heaven and earth tomb." Shao Qin felt excited. He had been to Desolate City's Hidden Dragon Lake once before. That was where he learned of Chu Chaoyun's true identity. Back then, the frost flood dragon had sent Shao Qin flying with one claw strike. However, in reality, it had helped Shao Qin deal with several bruises and hidden injuries that he had not noticed. At that time, Shao Qin had won 100 matches in a row in the wrestling ring. While it looked impressive, in reality, there were some hidden injuries in his body. If they were not dealt with in time, they might turn into hidden injuries. The frost flood dragon had done Shao Qin a favor. However, Shao Qin did not know why it had helped him back then. When Senior Feng saw that Shao Qin seemed to be very interested, he smiled and said, "Let's go to the hall first. I will tell you in detail." In the main hall of the Haotian sect's branch, Shao Qin and Senior Feng sat side by side. The female disciple who came to serve tea looked at Shao Qin suspiciously. The female disciple felt very curious. Where did this major character come from? Why is he sitting side by side with the Supreme Elder? Based on Senior Feng's expression, he did not treat Shao Qin as a junior. Senior Feng's position was even higher than the sect master's. Normally, only the sect master could sit beside Senior Feng. The female disciple sized up Shao Qin, finding him somewhat familiar. However, she did not know where she had seen him before. When Shao Qin and Senior Feng picked up their teacups, she had no choice but to leave. When the female disciple walked out of the hall, she thought of something and took out a register. The words "True Dragon Ranking" were written on it. When she flipped to the first page, the person in the illustration entered her eyes. When the female disciple thought back to that person's appearance, her heart could not help but pound heavily. Unexpectedly, the white-robed bladesman Shao Qin had returned. Furthermore, he was sitting side by side with the Supreme Elder. If this news spread, who knew what kind of commotion it would cause? The clan heads and sect masters of the 8 noble clans and 10 great sects all rushed over. Shao Qin asked calmly after he heard Senior Feng's introduction. He put down the teacup in his hand and asked calmly. Senior Feng nodded slightly and replied, "Almost all of them. Most of the martial sages of the entire Sky Dome realm rushed over. It is hard to say what is hidden in the grave of the first generation Tianwu Emperor. The first generation Tianwu Emperor was a sovereign martial emperor 10,000 years earlier than the Qing Emperor. There were countless legends about him in the Sky Dome realm. On the other hand, Shao Qin rarely heard anyone mention him in the Kunlun realm. Such a person, who even possessed a strong heavenly flame, did not leave any records of his deeds in the Kunlun realm. This was extremely strange. Could it be that this first-generation Tianwu emperor was like the people who left their vague marks at the top of the Sage Mark Monument, mysteriously leaving this world and not truly dying? Putting aside these guesses for now, the first-generation Tianwu emperor was definitely an extremely strong person. Since his grave had been passed down, it would be hard to avoid people coveting it. Shao Qin compared his strength to Senior Feng's. Senior Feng was a superior-grade martial sage, but he did not give Shao Qin any pressure at all. Compared to the 3 superior-grade martial sages of the Heaven and Earth sect, Shao Qin could not be mentioned in the same breath. There was a huge difference in accumulations between advancing to martial sage in the Sky Dome realm and the Kunlun realm. Shao Qin finally understood it now. No wonder some of the martial sages of the Sky Dome realm were unwilling to go to the Kunlun realm, even though they had accumulated sufficient resources. If they went to the Kunlun realm with their strength, they would not even be qualified to be bystanders. They might as well stay in the lower realm and live a peaceful life. Shao Qin thought for a while and thought of another question. He asked, "What's going on with that frost flood dragon?" Based on Senior Feng's tone, it seems like this is not its first time undergoing a tribulation. Senior Feng nodded and said, "It has undergone a tribulation several times already, probably once every 1,000 or 2,000 years. This flood dragon did not choose to take human form, choosing another path of cultivation for spirit beasts. Its life force is extremely strong. Although it did not advance to martial emperor, a regular emperor would not be able to do anything to it. This time, it has already reached its peak. If it succeeds in its tribulation, it will turn from a flood dragon to a dragon, becoming an ice true dragon. At that time, due to the agreement between the Kunlun realm and the demonic world, it will not be able to stay. However, it is more likely that it will fail its tribulation and die. It has already lived for too long, and its luck is nearly exhausted. All the martial sages are waiting for it to die so that they can make a move on its heavenly emperor's grave." Shao Qin knew that there was no Emperor Wu in the Sky Dome realm. However, for some reason, this was the second time he heard about this agreement. "What exactly is this agreement? Can Senior Feng tell me?" Shao Qin asked out of curiosity. Senior Feng took a sip of tea and said, "It is not a secret. There is no harm in telling you. After the destruction of the Tianwu dynasty, the Bushan Palace and the demonic world came to an agreement to work together to suppress the development of this realm." Chapter 851. No matter who it is, neither side is allowed to send out Emperor Wu's experts. They also cannot allow Emperor Wu to exist in this realm. If a battle breaks out, neither side is allowed to send Emperor Wu down. The Sky Dome realm will belong to whoever wins it. However, the agreement must still be fulfilled. When Shao Qin heard that, he could not help but laugh hoarsely. When he was still in Mo City's demonic beast forest and was only a martial disciple, he had fantasized about the protection of the 3 holy masters. Now that he thought about it, he had been too naive. What demonic calamity! It was just a game that the major characters of both sides agreed on. The masses were like chess pieces at their mercy. Only by grasping absolute strength and jumping out of this game could one be qualified to control one's own fate and see the true nature of this world. However, I'm not sure why the Bushan Palace and the demonic world came to this agreement. It has to do with the destruction of the Dragon's Gate 10,000 years ago, Old Feng continued. Clearly, he did not know that Shao Qin had already acknowledged his identity as a descendant of the Qing Emperor in the Kunlun realm. Shao Qin smiled and did not continue this topic. He stood up and said, "Many thanks for Old Feng's hospitality. I plan to make a trip to the Tianwu Emperor's grave, so I'll take my leave first." Old Feng was not surprised by this. He had absolute confidence in Shao Qin's strength. Now that Emperor Wu did not appear in the Sky Dome realm, he could not think of anyone who could stop Shao Qin. Haha, in that case, I won't send you off. If not for the fact that I have to oversee the sect, This old man would also like to take a look at the excitement. After leaving the Haoqian sect, Shao Qin executed Thunder Dragon steps. With one step, space instantly tore apart. Compared to the spatial structure of the Kunlun realm, the Sky Dome realm was like paper. Shao Qin immediately entered the void. Shao Chun moved at lightning speed through space. Occasionally, he tore a crack in space to see where he was going. In less than 4 hours, Shao Chen traveled from the great Jin nation to the sky above desolate cities, hidden Dragon Lake. There was no obstruction in space. His speed was startlingly fast. Rumble. The scene before them was a little frightening. Black thunderclouds gathered in the sky above the Qianlong Lake. Lightning bolts as thick as water buckets rained down on the Qianlong Lake. Waves rolled, and the sky changed color. The void was easily torn apart by the lightning. The lake water splashed everywhere, and the originally flat lake surface was ravaged into a tragic sight. Shao Chun frowned slightly as he looked at the descending lightning bolt. If it had landed on him, he would not have been able to withstand it. It seemed like the Frost Flood Dragon was really in danger this time. With a flash of light, Shao Chen directly fell into the final entrance lake, avoiding the lightning bolts and descending towards the tomb of the Celestial Arch. When Shao Chen landed in the middle of the lake, a man wearing Tianwu royal robes and carrying a sword on his back revealed a surprised expression. He muttered, "Why is he back at this time?" The world under the water was a completely different world. Shao Chun hovered in the air, not in a rush to land. He watched as the bolts of lightning entered the cold pool beside the celestial Thearcha's tomb. A mournful and aged roar came from inside, continuously, shaking everyone's eardrums and causing them to feel a sense of sorrow for no reason. This was not like an absolute expert fighting against the heavens, filled with boundless sharpness and heroism. It was more like an old man who had lived for a very long time, struggling at death's door, expressing the final dissatisfaction in his heart. That voice contained an indescribable obsession, an indescribable sorrow, and an emotion that moved one's expression. Those who were not close friends would not be able to understand. The world had its own cycle of reincarnation. No matter what kind of creature one was, no matter how strong one would not be able to escape death in the end. The heavenly Tao was like a sword hanging above everyone's head. No one could break that sword with a punch. It looked like Old Phone was right. This Frost Flood Dragon had lived for too long. It had already been more than 20,000 years since the Tianwu dynasty was established. The Frost Flood Dragon had already exhausted its luck. It would be impossible for it to undergo its tribulation and become an ice true dragon at this time. When Shao Chen looked to the front, he saw several figures standing at the limits of his vision. Their eyes filled with incomparable excitement. Clearly, they knew about this as well. This old dragon had been standing guard here for a very long time, causing many people with ill intentions to return in defeat. Today, it was finally going to die. What kind of secrets did the first generation Tianwu Emperor's tomb hide? It was finally going to be revealed. Like these people, Shao Qin was very curious about the first generation Tianwu Emperor's tomb. He felt boundless anticipation in his heart. However, when he arrived here and heard the sorrowful roars of that old dragon, he could not help but be moved. Those who were not close friends would not be able to understand the meaning behind these words. Shao Qin did not know if he could be considered a close friend or not. However, he could understand the helplessness contained in these sorrowful roars. What helplessness? It was the helplessness of not being able to fulfill the promise of the first generation Tianwu Emperor. It was the helplessness of seeing through everything in the world and standing at the peak of the Sky Dome realm. In the end, he still could not escape death. It was the obsession in his heart, unable to let go of this first generation Tianwu Emperor's tomb. Helplessness, helplessness, helplessness. The rumbling thunder turned into malevolent lightning that tore through the sky and space, mercilessly falling into that cold pool. Shao Chen raised his head and looked into the distance. There were dozens of martial sages standing there. Their faces were all filled with extreme excitement. They were all very tense, not even daring to breathe loudly. Xiao Chen's gaze moved between the cold pool and the distance. He shook his head slightly and slowly moved back. For some reason, he lost interest in this Tianwu Emperor's tomb. He simply did not want to profane the obsession of an old dragon that had guarded for 20,000 years. Just as Xiao Chen's figure was about to enter the lake, thousands of purple lightning bolts gathered together and turned into a bolt of golden lightning. It was as straight as a javelin descending from the sky. Before it landed, the entire space trembled intensely. Countless pitch-black cracks spread out in all directions, like a spiderweb from where the lightning landed. The entire space seemed to shatter. Cassier! 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 The cracks were like tentacles reaching Xiao Chen. However, a formless force stopped them, preventing them from advancing at all. This old dragon is finished. Xiao Chen sighed softly as he looked at the cold pool, not even bothering to look at the horrifying cracks in front of him. Boom! The golden lightning instantly entered the cold pool. An intense roar stopped. The hidden dragon lake finally regained its calm. Amidst the silence, a great destruction silently occurred. After a while, beams of green light came out of the cold pool, looking as beautiful as fireflies in summer. When the spots of light landed on the ground, the desolate land beside the Tianwu Emperor's tomb immediately sprouted lush green flowers and grass. Suddenly, this barren land flourished with life. The old dragon was dead. Its long life essence was quickly dispersing. This was a miraculous scene for everyone. The flowers and grass on the ground grew wildly. A great world filled with spiritual energy and a dazzling array of flowers appeared in this serene land. Just as everyone marveled at this miraculous scene, a dragon pillar floated out of the cold pool. It gave off a bright light, resplendent like the sun, so piercing that it hurt the eyes. The expressions of everyone around the Tianwu Emperor's tomb changed drastically. They felt an apocalyptic force, like it was going to blast the entire desolate city into rubble. Oh no, this old dragon is still restless even before its death. It wants to blow up the entire desolate city and bury everything. It's over. We can't escape. This energy sealed off the surrounding space. We can't get out at all. The many martial sages that soared up returned after hitting a wall. This time they were truly anxious. Their faces turned ashen, and boundless despair filled their hearts. However, after waiting for a while, they discovered that the dragon pearl had mysteriously vanished. The energy sealing off the space also vanished without a trace. This startled me. It turned out to be a feint. I knew it. This old dragon was struck half dead by lightning. How could it have the strength to do this? The surrounding martial sages released their bated breath at the same time. Then, they sized up the Tianwu Emperor's tomb once more. The despair on their faces vanished, replaced by boundless fanaticism. Whoosh! Whoosh! The figures of the martial sages flashed as they rushed towards the Tianwu Emperor's tomb. However, just as the group arrived near the Tianwu Emperor's tomb, electric light flashed, and a white figure suddenly appeared above the tomb. Everyone, please return. This Tianwu Emperor's tomb is not something you can open yet. The sudden appearance of the white figure startled everyone. The number of martial sages in the Sky Dome realm was limited. In this circle, everyone would know each other. Even if they did not know each other, they would at least have heard of the other party's name. They would not be completely ignorant. However, they had never heard of such a young martial sage with an unfathomable cultivation. Little friend, where are you from? Will you report your name? The great Jin Nation's 8 noble clans clan head asked when he saw Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. It had only been 2 years. yet no one recognized him. This was strange. Actually, Shao Qin did not know that his appearance had not changed in the Kunlun realm during the past 2 years. Instead, his aura had undergone an earth-shattering change. The Sky Dome realm's white-robed bladesman was low-key and reserved, hiding his sharpness. He appeared calm on the surface, but proud on the inside. At this moment, Shao Chun displayed his sharpness wantonly. Furthermore, he possessed the bloodline of an overlord. This invisibly influenced his aura. With one glance, he looked like a powerful treasure saber, resplendent and dazzling. Shao Qin appeared sharp, but his heart was as calm as still water. This was a great change from before. Furthermore, many people had not seen him before, so it was normal that they could not recognize him. Only the Bai clan's clan head and the Sima clan's clan head, Sima Hong, showed uncertain expressions, finding him somewhat familiar. However, they could not connect Shao Chen's changed temperament to the white-robed bladesman of the past. Furthermore, they were not willing to believe that a martial monarch could become a martial sage in a mere 2 years. This was too shocking. Shao Chun smiled faintly and looked at the several dozen martial sages in front. He said, "My family name is Shao and my name is Qin. You should have heard of my name before. I remember that I even fought with some of you personally. What's wrong? It has only been 2 years, and you have already forgotten about this Zhao's existence?" Chapter 852. Whoosh! The entire place was shocked. Several people looked at Shao Chen with expressions of disbelief. Shao Chen was the white-robed bladesman who won consecutive victories in the 5-nation youth competition. Back then, in the final battle, he had caused the surrounding dragon veins to tremble. Shao Chen's name had spread throughout the entire Tianwu continent along with the true dragon ranking. The boundless sea spoke of his deeds. Shao Chun came from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, an unranked sect. However, he advanced rapidly, defeating all sorts of experts before finally reaching the peak. In less than 3 years, he had actually returned from the Kunlun realm. Furthermore, he had advanced to martial sage, a cultivation that these old fellows could only achieve in 100 or 200 years. Sima Hong paled slightly. Unexpectedly, it really is him. The fellow that I once smacked half to death with one palm strike really returned. If I do not die, I will definitely wash the Sima clan in blood in the future. Sima Hong could not help but feel fear when he saw Shao Chen's current cultivation. His body trembled slightly. After hesitating for a while, he prepared to turn around and leave. "Sima Hong, if you have the guts, then take one more step." Shao Chen's gaze was like lightning, revealing its sharpness as he shouted coldly at Sima Hong. Sima Hong was slightly stunned and felt somewhat guilty. Then he perked himself up and said, "Shao Qin, don't think that you can speak arrogantly just because you are a martial sage. Do you really want to wash the Sima clan in blood? With the accumulations of my Sima clan, if we really fall out, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion will not have a good time, either." The other martial sages could not help but show complicated expressions. Back then, Sima Hong had disregarded his status and caused a huge commotion in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, causing the deaths of many juniors. In the end, he was slapped in the face. That was a matter that shook the entire place. Sima Hong would never have imagined that the minor character, who could not even last one move against him back, then would have a cultivation that even he could not see through in less than 3 years. Shao Chen's lips curled up into a smile. He said, "Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Back then you killed and injured countless disciples of my Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Don't worry, I will only place this debt on you. Although my heart is cold, I am not someone who will kill the innocent. Back then, you gave me a sword strike and beat me half to death. Today, I will only ask you one question. Do you dare to take one finger from me and settle this grudge?" There was a boundless sharpness in his eyes, but his heart was as calm as still water. Shao Chun looked at Sima Hong and quietly waited for his answer. A storm is brewing and thunderclouds are pressing down on the city. I only have one question. Do you dare to take a finger from me? One finger? All the Sky Dome realm martial sages present could not help but mutter to themselves. It is just one finger. This Shao Chen overestimates himself. Could it be that Shao Chen thought that he could kill Sima Hong with a single finger? How old was Sima Hong? How old was Shao Chen? Even if you, Shao Chen, advanced to martial sage in the Kunlun realm and is much stronger than in the Sky Dome realm, how old are you? However, wanting to defeat Sima Hong with a single finger was no different from a fantasy. Sima Hong's expression changed. He said coldly, "Fellow Taoists, listen up." He said it himself. Receive one finger from him and settle this grudge. The martial sages who were on good terms with Sima Hong all spoke up for him. Shao Chen, when a man speaks, his words carry enormous weight. Don't immediately go back on what you said. That's right. Otherwise, even if you become Emperor Wu in the future, breaking your promise will be a stain on your life. Shao Chen's delicate face remained as calm as an ancient well. He said calmly, I said one finger and it is one finger. Sima Hong, I'm only asking if you dare to take it or not. What a joke. If I do not even dare to take one finger from you, I, Sima Hong, have lived so long in vain. Sima Hong did not show any fear. It was just one finger. At most, he would only suffer some minor injuries. He, Sima Hong, was a peak medial grade martial sage. Shao Chen smiled coldly in his heart. Even at death's door he is still so arrogant. He is truly looking at the sky from the bottom of a well. He does not know how vast the sky outside is. Shao Chen instantly activated his overlord bloodline, and the 300-odd heavenly sage laws in his body swam around like a river. Rumble. The sound of surging water in Shao Chen's body caused thunder to rumble everywhere. The purple lightning talisman in Shao Chen's sea of consciousness spun quickly. The will of thunder infused into the heavenly sage laws and poured into his fingertip. In the time it took for a spark to fly, Shao Chen stretched out his hand and pointed. A strand of saber chi shot out from his fingertip, and the ethereal saber soul in his sea of consciousness came out as well. The purple saber chi was like a beautiful light. It gathered Shao Chen's will of thunder, 90% comprehended saber intent, and 80% comprehended lightning-attributed energy from the 300 heavenly sage laws. First, an extremely resplendent purple light lit up at the tip of Shao Chen's fingertip. Kassier! Kassier! The space in front instantly shattered. The entire space shattered into tens of thousands of shards, looking like a mirror. When Sima Hong saw that resplendent light, his heart instantly sank. He knew he was gravely mistaken, and he turned ashen in fear. The heavenly sage laws in his body quickly left his body. He quickly formed hand seals and formed layers of light barriers in front of him, trying to block this finger. There were many heavenly sage laws, no less than 500 of them. However, every one of them was not even as thick as a pinky finger. They were far from comparable to some inferior grade martial sages of the Kunlun realm. Pusi! The purple saber light flashed. Sima Hong's defenses were like paper. They did not have any defensive effect at all. Blood filled the air as the saber chi pierced through Sima Hong's body. As space shattered, he shattered into thousands of shards, dying without a complete corpse. With one finger, space collapsed. Sima Hong did not even have a chance to make a sound before he died, silently. Shao Chen withdrew his hand and stood upright. Everywhere that strand of saber chi passed, space already collapsed, turning into shards that looked like mirrors drifting around. The other martial sages were so frightened that they broke out in a cold sweat. The horror in their eyes was indescribable. What kind of horrifying strength was this? The medial-grade martial sages of the Sky Dome realm could not resist at all before Shao Chen. In reality, It was not that Xiao Chen was too strong. Instead, it was that these Sky Dome realm martial sages were too weak. Compared to the Kunlun realm martial sages, their accumulations were simply too lacking. The difference was like clouds and mud. Furthermore, Xiao Chen comprehended the will of thunder, and his saber intent reached peak 90% comprehension. It already had the shape of a soul. While this finger strike looked casual, it contained close to 80% of Xiao Chen's strength. He did not intend to let Sima Hong live. More importantly, Xiao Chen wanted to use this finger strike to deter the other martial sages from having any designs on the Heavenly Emperor's grave. The drifting shards of space in front started to piece back together. Xiao Chen scattered his aura and said calmly, "I've dealt with my personal matters. Let's continue with the proper business. It is not time to open the Heavenly Emperor's grave yet. Everyone, please return." Xiao Chen had said the same thing earlier. His tone and attitude had not changed at all. However, the effect this time was immediate. Most of the martial sages left in an instant. They had no choice but to leave. Just look at Sima Hong's miserable death. This old man congratulates brother Xiao Chen on obtaining the Heavenly Emperor's grave. Soon, this old man will definitely pay the Heavenly Saber Pavilion a visit. A voice projection rang out in Xiao Chen's mind. It was the sect master of the Haotian sect's Sky Dome realm branch. Xiao Chen smiled bitterly in his heart. Most people probably did not believe him when he said that the Heavenly Emperor's grave was not suitable to be opened. However, Xiao Chen could not be bothered to explain. He sent a voice projection back and said, "Senior is too serious." The martial sages slowly scattered. Soon, only Xiao Chen remained. He sighed silently. A pearl, radiating a strong cold qi, appeared in Xiao Chen's hand. It was the dragon pearl that gave off a bright light earlier. "Xiao Chen, are you really not going to take a look and see what is in the first generation Tianwu Emperor's grave? This Tianwu Emperor is a mysterious person. We might not even know if he is dead or not. As long as we open the coffin and take a look, we will know everything." Ao Jiao spoke softly from the immortal spirit ring. Xiao Chen glanced at the Heavenly Emperor's grave in the lush greenery below. He said, "Never mind. Since I made a promise to that old dragon, I will help him complete his unfulfilled promise." Earlier, when the dragon pearl was about to explode, even Xiao Chen, who was hiding in the lake, was startled. Just as he prepared to tear space and leave, the dragon pearl flew into his hand with a schwa sound. However, the dragon pearl flew into his hand with a schwa sound, causing him to be shocked. It turned out that the dragon pearl contained a trace of the old dragon's remnant soul. The old dragon entrusted Xiao Chen to continue guarding the Heavenly Emperor's grave and not let anyone open it. Xiao Chen could not agree completely. He could only promise to do his best to guard the Heavenly Emperor's grave before he left the Sky Dome realm. After he left, he would be too far away to do anything. Fortunately, the old dragon was very straightforward. If there was no time to guard it, he would tear the Heavenly Emperor's grave into the void and destroy it. This was a strand of remnant soul in the first place. After it spoke, it stopped breathing, leaving only the dragon pearl in Xiao Chen's hand. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand, and the universe flags appeared in his grasp. Then he waved his hand. 72 formation flags flew out, and Xiao Chen formed hand seals with both hands, preparing to set up restrictions to seal this place. Interesting. Unexpectedly, the first generation Tianwu Emperor's grave ended up being guarded by a descendant of the Qing Emperor. It looks like there really is such a thing as fate. A clear voice resounded. Chu Chaoyan descended from the sky and arrived in front of Xiao Chen. Chu Chaoyan wore the ancient uniform of the Tianwu dynasty. His expression today was strangely solemn, a stark contrast to his usual carefree demeanor. Xiao Chen felt somewhat surprised at Chu Chaoyan's appearance. However, he soon understood. Given Chu Chaoyan's identity as a descendant of the Tianwu dynasty, It was impossible for him not to know about today's matter. Are you going to open this heavenly emperor's grave? If so, I'm afraid things will not go as you wish. Shao Chun waved his hand, and the lunar shadow saber appeared in his left hand. Chu Chaoyun's lips curled up in a smile as he took a step forward. He said, "Don't you want to know whether the first-generation Tianwu emperor is dead or not? Speaking of which, this is a secret that even I do not know." Shao Chen stared at the other party. The leaping sharpness turned into a gentle breeze that fluttered his clothes and hair. The Neptune headscarf on his forehead made his heart calm. Chapter 853. Shao Chen placed his right hand on his saber hilt and said, "Don't get any closer. I do not want to know this secret. What I want to know is why you went to the demonic world and mingled with the demons." Demonic world? Chu Chaoyun revealed a grave expression. He said, "That place can be considered a demonic world for now." "Why did you mingle with them?" "The reason is simple. I need to comprehend the will of darkness. I need the martial techniques of the demon race. I need strength. Like you, I need to continuously grow stronger. I once said that there would be a battle between you and me. However, it is not now. In the end, we are people of the same path." After saying that, Chu Chaoyun knelt on the ground with a plop. Then he kowtowed 3 times in the direction of the cold pool. His lips curled up as he muttered something that only he could hear. The divine dragon protecting the nation was also dead. The final witness of the Tianwu dynasty had vanished from this world. After kowtowing 3 times, Chu Chaoyun stood up and left. After walking for 100 meters, he suddenly stopped and turned around. "I can guess some of your reasons for returning to the Sky Dome realm. Why don't you make a trip to the Dark Church? Perhaps you will learn something unexpected there." The 72 formation flags returned to the ground. Shao Chen glanced at the dragon pearl containing overwhelming energy in his hand and placed it in his universe ring. Then he thought back to what Chu Chaoyun said at the end. Shao Chen said, "Ao Jiao, how trustworthy do you think Chu Chaoyun's words are?" Ao Jiao said bluntly, "I feel that he is purposely trying to lead you to the Sky Dome Realm's Dark Church." "Does he have a grudge with the Sky Dome Realm's Dark Church?" Shao Chen said sullenly, "I think the same. However, the headquarters of the Dark Church is in the deep abyss demonic world. A branch in the Sky Dome realm should not be worth mentioning. Yet, Chu Chaoyun places so much importance on it. Perhaps there is something extraordinary about it." Although he knew that Chu Chaoyun was trying to lure him there on purpose, Shao Chen's curiosity was still aroused. "Where are we going now? Heavenly Saber Pavilion or Mo City?" Shao Chen looked around and said, "Let's go and visit Yu Chenxi's and Gong Yangyu's elders first. There are still some things that I have to deliver first." Even though Shao Chen was very anxious in his heart, wanting to return to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion and see the girl he had hidden in his heart, as well as his clansmen in the distant Mo River. However, he had to complete his friend's request first. When the 2 elders heard about Yu Chenxi and Gong Yangyu's situation in the Kunlun realm, they felt very gratified. Shao Chen chatted for a while and politely rejected the gifts from the 2 elders. Then, he rushed to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. With his current speed, it would not be an exaggeration to say that he came and went like a bolt of lightning under the void-breaking realm. Before the sun completely set, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion at the foot of the Lingyun mountain range appeared before Shao Chen's eyes. There was an endless stream of disciples coming and going at the foot of the mountain. Shao Chen casually extended his spiritual sense and covered most of the sect, taking in everything. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion had changed a lot. Not only did the number of disciples increase, but there was also a change in their mentality. Shao Chen shifted his gaze to Qingyun Peak. Halfway up the mountain, he saw a familiar figure teaching the female disciples how to practice the saber. This person was none other than Lu Suifeng. However, Shao Chen was surprised to see Chu Xinyan beside him. The two of them had an intimate expression on their faces, and their words were very ambiguous. Xiao Qin sighed and smiled. It has been a few years. Sui Feng finally got what he wanted. When the sun was about to set completely, the disciples at the middle of the mountain all took their leave. Xiao Chen's figure flashed, and he silently broke through many restrictions and landed beside the two. Lu Suifeng and Yun Kursin were startled. They quickly moved back and instantly drew their weapons. Then, they looked cautiously at the person who arrived. When Lu Suifeng clearly saw Xiao Chen's appearance, he exclaimed in pleasant surprise, "Xiao Chen, why are you back?" However, Chu Xinyan pulled Lu Suifeng back and said, "Wait a moment. Can't you make out his cultivation? Furthermore, why would Xiao Chen return to the Sky Dome realm at this time for no reason?" A girl's thoughts were usually more meticulous. Lu Suifeng was very carefree. When he saw Xiao Chen appear, he did not think much of it. When he heard what Chu Xinyan said, he put his guard up. This person before him had an unfathomable cultivation. Based on his aura, he was much stronger than his martial granduncles. How could he be related to Xiao Chen, who left 2 years ago? Xiao Chen smiled faintly and took out the lunar shadow saber. Then he casually tossed it to Lu Suifeng, not bothering to explain. Lu Suifeng held the pitch-black scabbard in his hand and sized it up. If this was not Xiao Chen's personal treasure saber, what else could it be? "Xiao Chen, it really is you," Lu Suifeng exclaimed in pleasant surprise as he handed the lunar shadow saber back. Xiao Chen smiled calmly and said, "Junior sister Chu, you are as meticulous as before. However, why are you not tending to the herb garden, but coming to Qingyun Peak to teach martial techniques to your juniors?" Chu Xinyan smiled apologetically and said, "Sorry, senior brother Xiao Chen. I was blind and did not recognize you. He. Xinyan married me half a year ago. Now, she is married to Qingyun Peak and is managing the matters of the peak together with me," Lu Suifeng said happily. When Xiao Chen heard this, he felt disappointed and frustrated. Lu Suifeng was married as well. He took out 2 sage-grade secret treasures and a bottle of rank 9 medicinal pills and handed them over. "Consider this a belated congratulatory gift." Lu Suifeng did not stand on ceremony with Xiao Chen. He immediately received them and tossed them to Chu Xinyan. He said, "Come, let's talk inside. We have not seen each other for more than 2 years. Let's drink to our heart's content." Chu Xinyan received the 2 sage-grade secret treasures and took a look. Then her expression turned strange. She wanted to warn Lu Suifeng, but he and Xiao Chen had already gone far away. Chu Xinyan could not help but smile bitterly. If Lu Suifeng knew these were 2 sage-grade secret treasures, he would not have accepted them so casually. At the stone table in the courtyard, Xiao Chen heard Lu Suifeng introduce the matters of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. He asked, "Where is Ruyue? Is she not at Qingyun Peak?" Lu Suifeng drained the wine in his cup and answered she left long ago. Qingyun Peak regained its former prestige. After she handed Qingyun Peak to me to manage, she left with Princess Yingyu. Half a year ago, she, Miss Feng, and Princess Yingyu appeared at my wedding with Kursin. Since Xiao Chen was with Yingyu, there was no need to worry about his safety. However, he did not know why the 3 of them were together. Lu Suifeng did not know much, either. He said, "I'm not sure about the details. However, given Princess Yingyu's character, there is no need to worry." Xiao Chen nodded slightly. However, he felt somewhat disappointed in his heart. On his return to the Sky Dome realm, the person he wanted to see the most was naturally Lu Ruyue. This was even more important than figuring out why he was chased out of his clan back then. However, it was fine to be with Yingyu. After all, he would not return until he broke through to the 7th layer of the Purple Thunder Divine incantation. He had plenty of time. News of Xiao Chen killing Sima Hong would spread soon. At that time, Lu Riyue should rush back. Late at night, Xiao Chen instructed Lu Suifeng not to spread the news of his appearance. Then he started walking around Qingyun Peak alone. Xiao Chen had studied at Qingyun Peak for 2 years. He was familiar with everything in Qingyun Peak, the flowers, plants, pavilions, terraces, and buildings. Along the way, he could not help but reminisce when he saw several places. That waterfall was where he cultivated the dragon and tiger north art. The forest at the back of the mountain was where he comprehended the Lingyun saber technique. The tree branches that Xiao Chen chopped off back then had already changed. The people practicing the saber in the forest were also a group of girls, most of them 14 or 15 years old. Even though it was late at night, they did not give up. The peach blossoms remained the same, but the people had changed. Xiao Chen continued walking and arrived at the place whereby took human form. When he thought about how much pain the girl had to endure to undergo her tribulation to take human form, he felt a heartache. Xiao Chen silently walked under the moonlight, not startling anyone as he arrived at the summit of Qingyun Peak. In the dark night, Xiao Chen saw the tallest, nameless peak in the Lingyun mountain range. Xiao Chen could not help but reveal a smile. He thought about how childish he was when he confessed on that peak. If it were a regular girl, she would have run away in fright. Xiao Chen gently leaped off Qingyun Peak and walked around the heavenly saber pavilion. Some of the familiar sceneries stirred up some memories in him. The things that were hidden in his memories appeared in his mind like a black and white movie. Xiao Chen walked to the heaven ascending platform. That battle was the battle that made his name known throughout the great Qin nation. Thinking about it now, he felt a lofty sentiment in his heart. Unknowingly, Xiao Chen had not noticed that along the way, his mental state had become complete once again. Xiao Chen had always been walking forward on the path of cultivation, but he had never looked back. Now that he was carefully sorting out his past and distancing himself from the intense competition in the Kunlun realm, he had gained something else. One who had traveled all over the mountains would not grow old. The lofty sentiments in one's heart would never fade. Xiao Chen returned to his courtyard and started to cultivate the Purple Thunder Divine incantation. He had already reached the bottleneck of the Purple Thunder Divine incantation's 6th layer. It was no longer as unreachable as before. Xiao Chen could feel that he was getting closer and closer to the horrifying lightning tribulation and the even more horrifying heart tribulation. It was hard to say whether he could survive it or not. This was the greatest danger he had encountered since he started cultivating. If he was not careful, he might die. If he could survive it, he would break out of his cocoon and become a butterfly. He would be reborn and walk a path that no one had ever walked before. When the first ray of sunlight broke through the last trace of darkness before dawn, the entire heavenly saber pavilion came to life. The sounds of people practicing in the morning merged into one, displaying a flourishing vitality. Xiao Chen opened his eyes and stood at the bottom of the cliff, taking in everything. The disciples of the 7 peaks of the heavenly saber pavilion practiced the saber techniques they learned under the supervision of the peak elders. Xiao Chen withdrew his gaze and looked up. The smile on his face slowly froze as he sighed softly. There was still a cliff at the summit of Qingyun Peak. Above the cliff was the true peak of Qingyun Peak. However, no one had been there for many years. The new Qingyun Peak disciples did not know that there was an old man sealed in ice at the top. He had used his life to seal a high-ranked cultivator of the demonic world. Given Xiao Chen's current strength, this ice seal was nothing. If he had his current strength back then, Lu Riyue's father would not have ended up like that. Chapter 854. Whoosh! An azure light flashed, and a figure headed in Xiao Chen's direction. When Xiao Chen saw who it was, he was not surprised. This was the only person in the heavenly saber pavilion who could discover him. This junior, Xiao Chen, greets senior Lung, Xiao Chen said sincerely as he bowed respectfully. The person who came was the younger brother of the previous sect master, the current wielder of the heavenly universe realm, Lung Tianhe. This person had once saved Xiao Chen's life. Even though Xiao Chen no longer feared Lung Tianhe with his current strength, he still had to show proper etiquette. The debt of saving his life was greater than the heavens. He had to remember it for life, never to forget it. Lung Tianhe frowned slightly. He was not surprised at Xiao Chen's current strength at all. He showed some joy and some disappointment at the same time. Why did you return to the Sky Dome realm at this time? Did the competition in the Kunlun realm make you shrink back? Or is it because of love and Feng Buxiao's worries? Lung Tianhe asked as he hovered in midair. Xiao Chen had nothing to hide from Lung Tianhe, so he explained his situation in detail. Heart tribulation? I have heard of berserking qi deviation quite often. However, I really do not know what a heart tribulation is. It feels like the tribulation that immortal cultivators undergo. Lung Tianhe's expression turned much warmer. He found the heart tribulation unfamiliar. He had never heard of it before. Lightning tribulation and heart tribulation. Kid, just what kind of cultivation technique are you cultivating? You might as well change to another cultivation technique. With your talent, it is not too late to start cultivating again. The risk of undergoing a tribulation is too great. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and tactfully rejected Lung Tianhe's suggestion. Naturally, he knew that he could avoid this tribulation by changing to another cultivation technique and suffering some losses. However, he had never thought about it. He had not even considered it at all. There was no other choice. He would fight to the death and then be reborn. If he did not even have the courage to fight to the death, the drive in his heart would be completely gone. Even if he could reach Emperor Wu in the future, he would not be able to become a sovereign martial emperor. Let's not talk about this anymore. Senior Lung, I brought some things this time. Xiao Chen waved his hand, and 30-odd rank 3 spirit veins origins flew out of the immortal spirit ring before Ao Jiao's extremely unhappy gaze. The surrounding spiritual energy instantly became 10 times denser. A spiritual fog spread out from the mountain peaks. When the sunlight shone down, it reflected all sorts of colors. Lung Tianhe exclaimed in shock, These are spirit vein origins. Furthermore, they are all rank 3. How can you have so many spirit vein origins? Given your strength, you would not have obtained so many spirit veins in the Lin sect. Lung Tianhe was right. If not for the fact that the older generation cultivators could not enter the Sage Mark Monument and that they had tricked the Ghost Race and the Corpse Race, they would not have been able to enter. Qin would not. With Chen he would not. Qin. With Qin he. Qin he. If Xiao Chen wanted to obtain so many spirit veins origins in the future, he would not have such a good opportunity. Xiao Chen did not explain. He said, If Senior had not made a move back then, I would have died long ago. These 30 spirit veins will not be enough to repay you for saving my life back then. However, they're a token of my sincerity. I hope Senior will not reject them. Lung Tianhe laughed heartily. He stretched out his hand and collected the 30 spirit veins. Then he said, Reject? Ha ha! In that case, I would really be muddle-headed. Xiao Qin, it is all thanks to you this time. Right now, the number of people in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion has already reached a bottleneck. This is because of the limited resources. These 30 spirit veins of yours are sufficient to ensure that the Heavenly Saber Pavilion will not have to worry for 1,000 years. At that time, the Sky Dome realm will have new spirit veins. Xiao Qin smiled faintly. Senior Lung's straightforwardness suited his temperament. Then Xiao Qin thought of something and asked, Senior, do you know what Lu Riyue did with princessing you? When Lung Tianhe heard this, he smiled bitterly and said, This girl is too proud. I already told her that if she could form ties with you, you would definitely not forget her. If you become a martial emperor in the future, you will definitely not forget her. However, she did not listen and insisted on going on experiential training, saying that she wanted to give it her all. The royal courts of the various nations are not allowed to participate in the five-nation youth competition. You should know this, right? Xiao Chen nodded to indicate that he understood. This was not a secret. The royal courts of the various nations all controlled a secret realm. They could not compete with the other sects for resources. As for what kind of secret realm it was, Xiao Chen did not know. Given Xiao Chen's position in the past, it would have been difficult for him to find out such secrets. Lung Tianhe continued. The secret realms of the various nations are actually all connected to one place. However, they occupy different areas. This secret realm is known as the Sky Dome Immortal Realm. Although the spiritual energy and fortuitous encounters there cannot compare to those in the Kunlun realm, they're still much stronger than those in the outside world. It looks like the Sky Dome Immortal Realm has some connection to the Sky Dome Immortal Lord. I will wait for another month, but if there is still no news, I will personally make a trip there. Xiao Chen thought to himself, since Ryue wants to compete, I will help her obtain all the fortuitous encounters in this Sky Dome Immortal Realm. However, before that, there was one more thing to do. Xiao Chen asked Lung Tianhe more about the Sky Dome Immortal Realm. The two chatted for a long time on the summit. After staying at Qingyun Peak for half a month, Xiao Chen spoke to Lu Suifeng before flying to Thunder Emperor Valley. Several old men still sat cross-legged in Thunder Emperor Valley, quietly comprehending the immortal will of thunder that had not scattered for 1,000 years. This lightning was a mysterious phenomenon that appeared automatically when Sangmu advanced to martial emperor, be it the murals of the Thunder King on both sides of the valley or the golden lightning in the sky. They were all born of nature. Xiao Chen looked down, and his eyes lit up. He could not help but smile gently. Unexpectedly, the old men that he sent into the sea back then were still there. Based on their auras, these old men had already comprehended the state of thunder to its limits. This time, Xiao Chen did not chase them away in a tyrannical manner. He hovered in the air and waited quietly for 3 days. When he opened his eyes, he could no longer see anyone in Thunder Emperor Valley. When the group of old men on the sea saw Xiao Chen descend, they all sighed. Half a month ago, the news of Xiao Chen returning to the Sky Dome realm and killing Sima Hong with one finger swept through the entire Sky Dome realm like a whirlwind, shaking up the surroundings. Back then, that white-robed bladesman had gained such a horrifying cultivation in less than 3 years. Several people had fought with him or seen him make a move. They were all extremely shocked, unable to calm down for a long time. Back then, these old men had tried to take advantage of their seniority to chase Xiao Chen away. However, Xiao Chen taught them a ruthless lesson. Back then, these old men might not have been convinced. Now, even if they were not convinced, they had to accept it. Xiao Chen was someone who could kill Sima Hong with one finger. What did they count for? What is he doing in Thunder Emperor Valley? I heard that he already comprehended the will of thunder. There is no point in comprehending it here. Could he be thinking of subduing this immortal will of thunder? That's impossible. In the past, several major characters of the Sky Dome realm wanted to subdue it. However, they all returned in failure, nearly dying in the process. Who knows? He is not an ordinary martial sage. When the many old men saw the white figure above Thunder Emperor Valley, they discussed it. Xiao Chen watched quietly as the golden lightning occasionally flashed in the clouds. When he felt that faint might, he felt astonished. The stronger one was, the more reverence one would feel for this immortal will of thunder. In the past, Xiao Chen was ignorant. He could only feel the strength of this lightning, but did not know how strong it was. Now, Xiao Chen had comprehended the will of thunder as well. It was also an immortal will of thunder. Now that he understood the principles behind it, he had a direct understanding of the might of this will of thunder. Even in the Kunlun realm, this will of thunder could injure a Grandmaster level martial sage. If a superior grade martial sage was not careful, they might be blasted to death. Shao Chen, have you decided? If you really want to subdue this immortal will of thunder, don't blame me for not warning you. Be careful not to injure your own origin chi. Ao Jiao warned. Shao Chen stared for a long time. Then he said slowly, I've decided. I'll just treat it as experiencing the might of the lightning tribulation. If I succeed, my will of thunder should improve qualitatively. The rumbling of thunder did not stop. Streaks of lightning streaked across the sky. The entire sky seemed to be bathed in lightning. The white figure above the Thunder Emperor Valley seemed desolate and frail. Occasionally, a bolt of lightning descended on Shao Chen. He waved his hand, and electric light wrapped his palm. That was his immortal will of thunder. A surging energy surged out, shattering the descending lightning into countless sparks flying everywhere in the air. Shao Chen looked straight at the sky. There was a golden bolt of lightning moving slowly there. The lightning in the surroundings came from it. This was also the target of Shao Chen's trip. Shao Chen pushed off the ground and unleashed a strong battle hunger in his heart. He soared into the air. Today, he had to subdue this will of thunder. Boom! Shao Chen had just soared 100 meters when a bolt of lightning descended on his head, not giving him any time to dodge. When the lightning descended, Shao Chen took it head-on. Electric flames immediately burned on his body as electricity crackled and flickered. Shao Chen felt somewhat numb. However, his limbs were fine. His internal organs were not injured at all. This level of lightning could not hurt him. Bang! 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 Every 10 meters or so, a bolt of lightning would land on Shao Chen's body, and a loud sound would reverberate between heaven and earth. The void around Shao Chen had long since shattered. Pitch-black cracks spread out, shattering the space. Dark clouds covered the sky for hundreds of miles, blocking out all the sunlight in the sky. The scene above Thunder Valley was extremely terrifying. Those old men on the sea in the distance couldn't help but retreat another 1,000 meters. As Shao Chen tore through the lightning in the air, he advanced amidst the electric light. All of them held their breaths in concentration and didn't dare make a sound. This scene was truly too shocking. It was as if he was going against the heavens. Under the gloomy sky, lightning streaked across the dark space. The power that erupted from that seemingly small white figure was actually this shocking. Unknowingly, 3 people had quietly appeared behind them. When the group of elders discovered these 3 people, they were undoubtedly shocked. The leader of the Black Dragon Guild in the Boundless Sea, the cult master of the Heavenly Saint cult, and the commander of the Black Flag Army in the Devil Prairie. Chapter 855. Unexpectedly, these 3 major characters are here as well. The Black Dragon group moves unhindered in the Boundless Sea. Even the 4 Shallow Seas Alliance is not a match for them. Although the Sacred Heavenly Church is a faction that rose in the past few years, their church master is a famous person as well. The Black Flag Army is a mysterious faction that the Heavenly Saber Pavilion at its peak worked with the various sects to surround and suppress. Even so, they returned in defeat in the end. Without exception, these 3 people stood at the peak of the Sky Dome realm. Their cultivations were unfathomable, far beyond what regular martial sages could compare to. However, all this was just the beginning. Following that, another 5 people arrived. Unexpectedly, the group of old men on the sea did not recognize any of them. Only the true peak factions would know that these 5 people were the guardians of the various royal clans. They spent many years in closed-door cultivation and had undergone experiential training in the Kunlun realm when they were young. When Shao Chen saw the 8 people arrive with his spiritual sense, he frowned slightly. He had really underestimated the Kunlun realm. He could not defeat any one of these 8 people easily. However, he could not be bothered with them at this moment. There was no need to worry about them coming to cause trouble. Without comprehending the will of thunder, they would just be seeking death. As Shao Chen hovered 2 kilometers in the air, the lightning he faced was no longer as easy as before. Most of the energy in his heavenly sage laws had been drained. Now that he was 1 kilometer away from the golden lightning bolt, Xiao Qin no longer dared to fully open his protective quintessence. Every time a bolt of lightning descended, a fiery light flickered. It burned his physical body like a knife, scraping at his heart and bones, inflicting unbearable pain. Xiao Chen's peak rank 2 sage body showed signs of breaking after being struck by more than 100 lightning bolts in a row. The electric light penetrated his body and moved around. This was a form of torture and a baptism for Xiao Chen's physical body. If Xiao Chen could endure this baptism, his physical body would definitely benefit greatly. The guardians of the 5 nations and the 3 from the sacred heavenly church formed 2 distinct groups. They gathered together and commented on Xiao Chen's actions. It looks like this junior can really subdue this will of thunder. That might not be the case. His physical body is about to reach its limit. If he continues to endure such an attack, that final bolt of lightning will be enough to shatter him into pieces. Strange, why are the remnants of the Tianwu dynasty gathered together? Could it be that they want to make a move at the crucial moment? These people have been in the limelight for the past few years. Rumor has it that they're working with the Nether sect. So what? They're just a bunch of shady forces. Do they really think they can overturn the heavens? With the forces behind us, it's a piece of cake to take care of them. The 5 guardians of the various nations discussed softly. They did not think too much about Xiao Qin subduing this divine lightning. They had only come to take a look out of curiosity. After all, this will of lightning had been passed down from generation to generation. There had never been a lack of people who wanted to obtain it. However, all of them returned in failure in the end. The reason for this was none other than the fact that no one dared to touch the last bolt of lightning that contained the origin of will. Lightning was the purest form of energy in the natural world. Aside from berserk, there was only berserk. There was no need for it to change anything. It directly used a horrifying explosive force to test one's endurance. Life and death were decided in that instant. If one could endure it, it would be over. If one could not, they would die falling from the sky. After 1,000 torments, Xiao Chen did not know how many times the lightning struck him. Finally, he was only 500 meters away from the golden bolt of lightning. The berserk lightning and boundless roars suddenly stopped. Only the howling of the wind remained. It was so quiet that it was scary. Clearly, this was not the end of the suffering. Instead, it was the final calm before the storm. Xiao Chen's heart sank. At this moment, the golden bolt of lightning was hidden in the clouds. Thunder clouds churned, but there was no sound of thunder. An extremely stifling feeling welled up in Xiao Chen's heart, making him feel very uncomfortable. Xiao Chen, this is the final bolt of lightning. It is coming for real. It contains an immortal will. If you can endure it, only death awaits you. You still have time to retreat now. Ao Jiao understood this immortal lightning much better than Xiao Chen. Along the way, Xiao Chen had not used any secret treasures or martial techniques. He had relied entirely on his physical body. How could Xiao Chen give up? As he looked at the dark thunderclouds, his blood surged. He said, "Bring it on." If Xiao Chen could not even endure this bit of lightning, then he would definitely not be able to clear the lightning tribulation of the 7th floor. What was the difference between dying earlier or later? Boom! Thunderclouds churned in the dark sky. After a while of silence, a spot of golden light suddenly pierced through the boundless darkness, giving off a dazzling light. Upon a closer look, it was a long sword formed by golden lightning. The tip of the sword pierced through the dark clouds, and the roar of thunder immediately resounded through the sky. Bolts of lightning streaked across the sky at the same time, illuminating the Thunder Emperor Valley. It's here. The most ferocious and horrifying strike of this immortal will of thunder is finally here. The experts of the 5 nations, the the three powerhouses of the Tianwu dynasty's remnant races, and the group of old men watching the excitement on the surface of the sea all cast their gazes over. For thousands of years, it was unknown how many people had died to this lightning. It was unknown how many arrogant experts had become deserters in front of this lightning, retreating without a fight. Everyone knew that this bolt of lightning was a treasure. However, it had existed for so many years, and no one had been able to take it away. Everyone was filled with anticipation as to whether Xiao Chen would be able to break this rule or not. Taiji Yin-Yang Flame Diagram. The moment the electric light appeared, Xiao Chen stretched out his hand, and the Taiji Yin-Yang Flame Diagram instantly appeared. The Taiji Yin-Yang Flame Diagram soared up, trying to suppress the might of this bolt of lightning. If Xiao Chen could subdue it in an instant, that would be perfect. When the golden lightning sword touched the center of the Taiji Yin-Yang Flame Diagram, Xiao Chen's body trembled. His sea of consciousness surged, and he felt dizzy, nearly falling over. With just one touch, the lightning-attributed energy in the sword flowed through the mental connection between Xiao Chen and the Taiji Yin-Yang Flame Diagram, invading his sea of consciousness. A cool chi came from the Neptune headscarf on Xiao Chen's forehead, waking him up. A bright light flashed in his eyes. Xiao Chen drove the purple talisman in his sea of consciousness, spinning it continuously, slowly absorbing all the lightning-attributed energy that invaded his sea of consciousness. In such a stalemate, Xiao Chen discovered that although he was in a passive position, the purple lightning talisman was clearly growing stronger after absorbing the lightning-attributed energy. Kassier! Kassier! Cracks spread out on the Taiji Yin-Yang Flame Diagram, looking like it would shatter at any moment. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and decisively withdrew his hand. In the time it took for a spark to fly, he activated the sage grade pagoda in his body. The image of a pagoda materialized and encased Xiao Chen. Pu Ci. In just an instant, the golden lightning sword chopped the image of this sage grade secret treasure in half. The pagoda in Xiao Chen's body also shattered at the same time, turning into beams of scarlet light that shot out of Xiao Chen's body. Xiao Chen vomited a mouthful of blood. However, his somewhat miserable face remained as calm as still water. As he watched the descending lightning sword, he did not admit defeat. Instead of advancing, Xiao Chen retreated. Electric light burst out from under his feet as he executed the myriad heaven divine fist. With tenfold combat prowess, the light from his right hand was no weaker than the lightning sword. As everyone exclaimed, Xiao Chen directly punched the golden lightning sword. Instantly, tens of thousands of lightning bolts descended in the surroundings, shattering space. The entire sky shook intensely. The sea churned endlessly, and the surging waves turned into pillars of water soaring into the sky. Xiao Chen vomited a mouthful of blood as he retreated 100 meters. His clothes were in tatters, and his skin was riddled with wounds. However, Xiao Chen's face was filled with fanaticism. The golden lightning sword's light had dimmed significantly in the face of Xiao Chen's punch. "I don't believe that I cannot subdue you," Xiao Chen shouted and charged forward again. In the blink of an eye, he threw more than 100 punches at the descending golden lightning sword, which pressed down so hard that even the sky seemed to be sinking. Lightning crackled around his body. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels, his bones, and his blood vessels were all being baptized by lightning. From the inside to the outside, he felt an indescribable pain. The nearly 2-meter-long golden lightning sword was reduced to the size of a palm by Xiao Chen. Not a single part of Xiao Chen's skin remained intact, and his internal injuries were frighteningly severe. However, it was all worth it. Xiao Chen tore off Neptune's headscarf, and the mental energy in his sea of consciousness surged out. A suction force sucked in the palm-sized golden lightning sword, turning it into a beam of light that entered Xiao Chen's sea of consciousness. The 3 powerhouses of the heavenly dynasty's remnant races exchanged glances and said, "Attack!" The three worked together, and each executed a killing move, charging at Xiao Chen, who had just subdued the lightning sword. At this moment, Xiao Chen's body was like a city waiting to be rebuilt. He had just experienced a bitter battle. As long as he recovered, he would be like a phoenix rising from the ashes. His strength would definitely soar. However, this recovery required time. No matter how strong Xiao Chen's physical body was, after suffering such severe injuries, there was not a single part of his body that was unscathed. His internal organs were even more severely damaged. Now was the best time to make a move on Xiao Chen. Furthermore, these three people all had impressive backgrounds. They were all peak characters in the Sky Dome realm. As the three moved as fast as lightning, they chained their killing moves together. Their auras were overwhelming, nearly covering half the sky. The guards of the 5 nations had not expected these three to be so decisive. Aside from the great Qin nation's guard, who immediately flew forward to block them, the other 4 old men muttered to themselves. The other 4 elders pondered for a moment, but they weren't in a rush to make a move. Bang! Although the great Qin nation's guard used his full power against these 3 powerhouses of the Tianwu dynasty's remnant races, he was no match for them in the end. The 3 barely managed to block for a while before they were blasted back by the momentum of the charge. Cracks appeared in space wherever they passed. Just the force of the impact was already so mighty. This showed how strong the three's combined strength was. Kill! After knocking back the great Qin nation's guard, the three's auras flourished. They shouted and charged over with an even more ferocious momentum. From their stance, it was clear that they wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to kill Xiao Chen in one move. In the time it took for a spark to fly, Xiao Chen suddenly opened his eyes. Before the other party's killing moves arrived, a strong wind formed by the surging shockwaves sliced over like a sharp knife. Chapter 856. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and stretched out his hand. A bright light burst forth from his forehead, and the purple talisman merged with the strand of Immortal Will of Thunder. The color of the talisman deepened, and 4 strands of golden electricity could be seen moving around it. This was the sign of a will of thunder comprehended to 40% comprehension. The talisman released a resplendent light containing an immortal legend. It seemed like there was only one purple lightning talisman in the world. An intense explosion resounded. The purple talisman, which looked like a meteor shield, easily broke the killing moves of the 3. Horrifying energy exploded out. The talisman split into 4, turning into 4 small golden swords dancing in the air. Kasie! Kasie! Horrifying wounds appeared on the bodies of the 3 Tianwu dynasty remnant races, traces of electricity charring the wounds, giving off strands of black smoke. Miserable shrieks rang out, and horror appeared in the eyes of the 3. They had not expected Xiao Chen to subdue the immortal will of thunder that the Thunder King left behind so quickly. Let's go! Xiao Chen left as quickly as he had come. Seeing that their attack had failed, the 3 decisively retreated. The protectors of the 4 nations who had been indifferent quickly chased after them, preparing to beat them up while they were down. The 4 beams of golden light returned to Xiao Chen's forehead. His body trembled a few times in the air before he landed on Thunder Emperor Valley. Then he consumed a few medicinal pills and calmed himself to treat his injuries. The dark clouds that had covered Thunder Emperor Valley for thousands of years vanished with the disappearance of the immortal will of thunder. Sunlight shone down, and the pieces of shattered space slowly merged back together. The injuries on Xiao Chen's body healed at a visible rate. Xiao Chen could clearly feel his new skin gaining a layer of luster and texture. Under the baptism of lightning, his physical body improved once more, approaching a rank 3 sage body. After checking his injuries, Xiao Chen shook his head slightly. He would not be able to recover quickly. That was all for now. He still had some things to do. "Senior, please wait." Xiao Chen opened his eyes and stopped the Qin Kingdom's guardian, who was about to leave. His figure flashed, and he arrived in front of the old man. Looking at the badge on the old man's clothes, Xiao Chen roughly understood the old man's identity. That emblem was clearly the same as the emblem of the Kunlun realm's sovereign noble clan, the Ying clan. The old man's complexion was pale, but he did not appear weak. He said in a deep voice, "Little friend, you should thank this old man for intervening earlier. It is my duty, so there is no need to take it to heart. Moreover, even if I did not intervene, I believe that little friend would have been able to successfully escape." Xiao Chen said politely, "Senior, you are being too humble. The situation earlier might seem simple, but it was very dangerous. Outsiders would find it hard to understand. That moment of time you helped me was truly crucial." At that time, it was a crucial moment for him to fuse with the golden lightning sword, and he couldn't get away at all. If the elder did not make a move, Xiao Chen would have no choice but to use the will avatar of the Haotian Great Emperor. The old man's expression did not change. However, the expression in his eyes turned much gentler. He was very satisfied with Xiao Chen's humility. "Haha, I guess that you stopped me because you have something else to discuss, right?" Xiao Chen was stunned. This old man really had incredible foresight. So he said directly, "I want to enter the Sky Dome Immortal realm. Given Senior's position in the royal court, it should not be difficult, right?" In the past half a month, the news of Xiao Chen returning to the Sky Dome Immortal realm had already spread everywhere. However, there was still no news of Lu Ruyue. Clearly, Lu Ruyue was in the Sky Dome Immortal realm. That was why she could not receive news of the outside world. Xiao Chen did not know when she would come out. Since that was the case, he would just go in and look for her personally. The old man frowned slightly and said, "Right now, a forbidden land in the Sky Dome Immortal realm is open. The elites of the various royal courts are in there. If you go in, it would be inappropriate. As for Lu Ruyue's safety, with you taking care of her, there is no need for you to worry. Furthermore, her personal strength is extraordinary." Xiao Chen rejoiced in his heart. The other party only said that it was inappropriate. That meant that he could still go in. The entrance to the Sky Dome Immortal realm was not closed. "In that case, I will not make things difficult for Senior. I will definitely repay Senior for this favor in the future." When the old man heard Xiao Chen say that, he heaved a sigh of relief. If he really sent Xiao Chen in, given Xiao Chen's strength, he would definitely cause a huge commotion in there. The royal courts of the 5 nations in there all had their own factions. The intense competition was not as simple as the old man made it out to be. If Xiao Chen went in and saw Lu Ruyue suffer any grievances, it would be terrible. As Xiao Chen watched the old man leave, he made up his mind. He had to go to the Sky Dome Immortal realm. It looked like the fortuitous encounters in there were pretty good. No matter what, Xiao Chen had to fight for them for Lu Ruyue. If he could not even do this, then he would not be a man. In the eyes of the various royal courts, the Qianwu dynasty's remnant races might have spoken casually, but they all treated them as a huge threat. Now that Xiao Chen injured the 3 remnant race powerhouses, how could they let go of such a good opportunity? The 4 guards of the various nations chased for a while. Just as they were about to catch up to the 3, a mysterious masked swordsman suddenly blocked them. That swordsman's left eye gave off a bright light, but his right eye was filled with boundless darkness. His sword technique displayed a strange sword Dao that merged light and darkness. After a few exchanges, that swordsman easily blocked the 3. After 100 moves, he smiled gently and withdrew mysteriously. When Xiao Chen looked again, the 3 remnant race powerhouses were long gone. On a small island in the boundless sea, the 3 remnant race powerhouses looked awkwardly at Chu Chaoyan, who had saved them. Chu Chaoyan removed his mask, but his expression appeared relaxed. He said calmly, "Consider this a lesson for you. Don't casually make a move behind my back." The Black Dragon Group's chief appeared conflicted. In the end, he could not help saying, "Young master, this Shao Qin is the Qing Emperor's inheritor. In the future, he will definitely be a strong opponent for you. How can you let such a good opportunity go so easily? Indeed, we were just a little short, and we would have been able to kill him. In the future, the Tianwu dynasty's resurgence would have one less obstacle." The other two also voiced their agreement. Just a little short? Chu Chaoyun's lips curled up in a smile. "Why do I feel that you were just a little short from being destroyed? Tomorrow, I will be leaving the Sky Dome realm. You should study the cultivation method that I obtained from the demonic world. Right now, your strength is far from sufficient." The Black Dragon Group's chief asked with some concern, "Young master, are you doing well in the demonic world?" Chu Chaoyun replied indifferently, "It is the same everywhere. Strength reigns supreme. Survival of the fittest. There's not much difference between humans and demons." It was a simple statement about survival of the fittest, but who knew how many cruel facts were hidden in it? Shao Chen was not in a rush to return to the heavenly saber pavilion. The strand of will of thunder that the Thunder King left behind still had some loose ends that needed to be dealt with. Along the way, Shao Qin found a desolate place. Then he floated down and opened his right hand. Spots of purple light started to gather on his palm, finally forming a talisman flickering with electric light. For strands of golden light quickly flickered in the complicated patterns on the talisman's surface. Each strand of light contained strong energy. With a thought, the purple lightning talisman immediately split into four, turning into four small swords. They flew about in the air, tearing pitch-black cracks in space. Just by casually flying around, the swords already had such great might. This showed how powerful the manifestation of Shao Chen's will was. However, this was where the problem lay. These four small golden swords were the manifestation of the Thunder King's will. No matter what, he was a bladesman. Sabers and swords were different. How could Shao Qin bring out the full might of these small golden swords? He could only change them. Looking at the four small swords in the air, Shao Qin entered deep thought. He stretched out his hand, and the four small swords merged back into the purple talisman. After closing his eyes and thinking for a while, Shao Qin came up with a countermeasure. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, and the strand of saber soul in his sea of consciousness came out in a flash. Wang, wang, wang. The sound of countless sabers humming rang out in the air. The sabers buzzed as a strong wind blew, quickly spreading the horrifying saber intent. All the bladesmen within 500 kilometers felt fear from the bottom of their hearts. They wanted to draw their weapons. Then Shao Chen waved his hand and suppressed the surging saber intent in the saber soul. A small, invisible saber appeared in the air, looking hazy and indistinct. Its exact existence could not be seen. However, that vast might was clearly felt by everyone. The hundreds of grass on the ground bent over, not daring to stand up straight. Shao Chen's gaze moved back and forth between the strand of saber soul and the purple lightning talisman. Then he opened his hand and slowly merged the two. Aside from this method, Shao Chen could not think of any other way to change the golden lightning sword into a saber from the inside out. The fusion of the two did not go smoothly. Be it the strand of saber soul or the purple lightning talisman, they were both too sharp. Neither was willing to submit to the other. Chi! Chi! The two clashed, clashing intensely. The strand of saber soul was not satisfied with merging with the purple lightning talisman. It was not satisfied with the purple lightning talisman at all. Instead, its appetite became even greater, wanting to consume the purple lightning talisman. Seeing the two separate, Shao Qin frowned. It looked like his earlier thoughts were too simple. Shao Qin, you cannot do this. You need to choose the main body of the two. Whether you use your will or your saber soul will represent the different paths you will take in the future. If you use your saber soul as the main body, Your physical body, and your mental energy martial techniques will all be restricted. The benefit is that your saber techniques will be more refined. If you use your will as the main body, you can develop it in all aspects, be it your physical body, your mental energy martial techniques, or your saber techniques. You can develop them all. However, your saber techniques will be very difficult to improve. When Ao Jiao saw that Xiao Chen was in a difficult spot and could not make up his mind, she gave him a detailed explanation. Xiao Chen thought for a while before asking, "Back then, what did the Thunder King choose? I remember that he was a swordsman, right?" When it came to the Thunder King, naturally, no one understood him better than Ao Jiao. She quickly answered, "The Thunder King's situation was different from yours. His physical body was not as strong as yours, and his mental energy was not as strong as yours. His situation was not as complicated as yours, either. The form of his will was a sword. The path he took was the path of a swordsman. It was very pure and simple. However, when he reached the peak, no one could defeat him." Chapter 857. It looked like the Thunder Emperor's path was no longer useful as a reference. It could not help him at all. My personal suggestion is that you focus on the saber soul and help the saber soul swallow up the will. Use the will to strengthen the saber soul. In the future, the improvement of the will strengthen the saber soul. As your saber techniques improve, you can also improve the will. Think about it. You cultivate the physical body, mental energy, and saber techniques. No matter which one it is not simple. When you reach the peak, you will be unrivaled everywhere. As the saying goes, biting off more than one can chew. You might as well focus on saber techniques. With your talent, your strength will soar in a short time. Ao Jiao continued to speak, voicing her opinion. Xiao Qin smiled bitterly. He had not expected this. He simply wanted to refine the will of thunder that the Thunder King left behind into something he was good at. However, it involved such a complicated discussion. Ao Jiao's words were easy to understand. Focusing on saber techniques meant spending all the time on the physical body, mental energy, and fist techniques on saber techniques. With so much time, it would be hard for his strength not to rise. However, this way his final accomplishments would be equal to the Thunder King and the Qing Emperor. It would be very difficult to surpass them. This was not what Xiao Qin wanted. With this idea in mind, Xiao Qin slowly merged the two again. However, this time he purposely helped the will, swallowing up the saber soul. The two were originally evenly matched. After one obtained Xiao Qin's help, it immediately gained the upper hand. The saber soul struggled for a while before being absorbed into the purple lightning talisman. After merging with the shape of the saber soul, the purple lightning talisman gained an indestructible sharpness that seemed to reign supreme. With a thought, the purple lightning talisman split into 4 beams of golden light. Each beam of golden light was an immortal, small saber. Xiao Qin revealed a satisfied smile. The golden light returned to his forehead and merged into the purple talisman in his sea of consciousness. Then he put on Neptune's headscarf. Some of the disturbing thoughts in his heart were stripped away. Xiao Chen's state of mind was like still water. Looking through his heart, he did not regret the decision he just made. He was Xiao Chen, not the Thunder King or the Qing Emperor. Due to his internal injuries, Xiao Chen slowed down significantly. However, by the time he returned to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, he had already recovered from most of his severe internal injuries. He was back to his peak state. As Xiao Chen expected, Lu Ruyue did not return. Instead, he met another familiar person. "Brother Xiao Chen, you're getting more and more awesome now. Did you bring any treasures for this fat lord this time?" Kim Tae-ho had been waiting at Qingyun Peak for a long time. When he saw Xiao Chen, he immediately smiled and ran over with squinted eyes. His figure was the same as usual, still round like a ball. When Xiao Chen saw Kim Tae-ho, he was rather happy. When he heard what Kim Tae-ho said, he smiled faintly and said calmly, "My things are not good enough for you, right? I heard that the Golden Rock Merchant Association has monopolized most of the business in the Sky Dome realm." Kim Tae-ho waved his folding fan and chuckled. "It's just a small business, not worth mentioning." The two chatted in the courtyard for a long time, sharing their experiences. When Fatso heard Xiao Qin talk about the various things in the Kunlun realm, his eyes lit up. However, after that, he became sad, feeling very conflicted. "Xiao Qin, given this fat lord's intelligence, do you think I can make a name for myself in the Kunlun realm?" Kim Tae-ho asked in a soft voice after holding back for a long time. Xiao Qin was speechless. He nearly spat out a mouthful of wine. "It is best if you don't go. Just stay in the Sky Dome realm and harm others." In the Sky Dome realm, Xiao Qin had suffered enough at the hands of this fellow. If the underwear maniac went to the Kunlun realm, he might bring him some trouble. After thinking for a while, Xiao Qin said very sincerely, "I feel that it is better for you to stay in the Sky Dome realm. Those geniuses and old monsters in the Kunlun realm are not on the same level as you. There is no point." When Fatso heard this, he could not help but sigh. He picked up his wine cup and drained it in one go. He said, "Great minds think alike. There are not many people in this world who can keep up with my thoughts. Today you, Xiao Qin, are one of them." "Never mind, I won't go then. I have been lonely in the Sky Dome realm for too long. Even after going to the Kunlun realm, I will still be this lonely. This is really boring. It looks like this fat lord is destined to be lonely for the rest of my life." Fatso revealed a somewhat sad expression. If he changed his face, he might be able to attract many young girls who liked this kind of aura. After finally dispelling Fatso's thoughts of going to the Kunlun realm, Xiao Qin thought about something else. He asked, "Brother Debeo, is there a way to enter the Sky Dome Immortal realm?" Fatso felt it was strange. He asked, "Why would I go in there? The great Tang nation's royal court invited me several times, but I never went. It is too dangerous in there. It is filled with all sorts of mutated immortal spirits and wild beasts. The competition between the various royal courts is also very intense. If I am not careful, I will suffer a lot." Xiao Qin felt excited. It looked like this Kim Tae-ho did have a way to enter the Sky Dome Immortal realm. In that case, he would not have to think of any other way to enter the Sky Dome Immortal realm. The environment inside was not as simple as the Great Qi Nation's protector said. This made Xiao Qin even more determined to enter. "Tell me, what is going on with the Sky Dome Immortal realm?" Fatso chuckled and said, "About that, I have yet to see Brother Xiao Qin's greeting gift." In his rush, Xiao Qin forgot about this Fatso's temper. He tossed out an astral coin and said, "This is a priceless treasure of the Kunlun realm. One is worth half a rank 8 sect." Kim Tae-ho picked it up and looked at it suspiciously for a long time. However, he could not make out anything. However, when he saw Xiao Qin's calm appearance, he pretended to be an expert. He said, "This is good stuff. I can tell with one glance that it is extraordinary. It is truly a treasure worth half a sect." Seeing Fatso treat an astral coin worth 1,000 superior grade spirit stones like a treasure, Xiao Qin's expression remained calm. There was nothing strange about it. Kim Tae-ho blew on that astral coin before rubbing it. Then he smiled happily and said, "Brother Xiao Qin is really interesting. The more I look at this thing, the more this fat lord likes it. However, what exactly is it used for?" Xiao Qin found it strange and asked, "You don't know?" Kim Tae-ho laughed loudly and said, "How can that be? How can this fat lord not know such a famous thing? It is that right?" Xiao Qin held back his laughter and said calmly, "It is just a small thing. It is not worth much. Tell me more about the Sky Dome Immortal Realm." When Fatso saw Xiao Qin's casual attitude, he was even more convinced that it was a treasure. He immediately explained the Sky Dome Immortal Realm in detail. After Xiao Qin finished listening, he thought about it carefully. This Sky Dome Immortal realm was more complicated than he had imagined. Naturally, the Sky Dome Immortal realm was not a true immortal realm. It was just a name given by the people of the Sky Dome realm. The spiritual energy there was abundant, and there were many natural treasures. Cultivating there would be 3 or 4 times faster than cultivating outside. However, it was still not comparable to the Kunlun realm. The Sky Dome Immortal realm was an independent small world, about 1/10 of the size of the Tianwu continent. It could be considered very vast. The royal courts of the various nations all had their own encampments there. However, most of the places were public, so they could go on adventures together. Rumor had it that that was the true residence of the Sky Dome Immortal Lord. Everything in the outside world, including the Tianwu continent and the boundless sea, had slowly evolved from the Sky Dome Immortal realm over a long period of time. There were many immortal beasts that the Sky Dome Immortal Lord casually reared. After they mutated and multiplied, they became ferocious beasts without any spiritual energy. However, the spirit cores in their bodies still contained some immortal chi. After removing the impurities and absorbing them, their cultivation would increase significantly. The ferocious beasts were very strong. Some of them were even as strong as superior grade martial sages of the Kunlun realm. In the Sky Dome Immortal realm, there were existences that could not be offended. Aside from the immortal beasts that the Sky Dome Immortal Lord once reared, there were also some 10,000-year-old spirit plants. Some of these spirit plants gained intelligence and could even cultivate. The most famous spirit plant in there was called the longevity tree. Rumor had it that the Sky Dome Immortal Lord cultivated under this tree in the past. The longevity tree could bear longevity fruits. The longevity fruits could not truly make people live forever. However, they could easily increase a cultivator's lifespan. One longevity fruit could increase a cultivator's lifespan by 100 years. However, it was only effective the first time one consumed it. The thing that truly attracted cultivators was not the longevity fruit, but the 7-colored auspicious signs that would descend from the sky when the longevity fruit ripened. Auspicious signs were graded by color. The more colors there were, the higher the grade. 7-colored auspicious signs were second only to 8-colored and 9-colored auspicious signs. Above 9-colored auspicious signs were the legendary heavenly signs. Heavenly signs would only appear when a sovereign martial emperor or an emperor-grade medicinal pill bore fruit, like the undying tree. Even the Kunlun realm's martial sages could not wait for such good things. A 7-colored auspicious sign was already of a very high level. It contained the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The spiritual energy contained in it was even purer than a rank 3 spirit veins origin. Just one strand of it could allow one's cultivation to soar. Furthermore, there were no side effects. There would not be the situation of spoiling things through excessive enthusiasm. The longevity fruit ripened once every 5,000 years. This time, it happened to be the time for it to ripen. Not only were the younger generation of the various royal courts eager to try, but even some of the old antiques with unfathomable cultivations who were nearing the end of their lifespans made a move. Naturally, the younger generation sought the 7-colored auspicious signs, while the older generation sought the longevity fruit. Everyone took what they needed. However, resources were limited. Be it the 7-colored auspicious signs or the longevity fruit, there would not be many of them. The competition between them was easy to imagine. Strange, these longevity fruits and 7-colored auspicious signs should be very attractive to you, right? Why do you not seem interested at all? Xiao Chen asked suspiciously as he looked at Kim Tae-ho, who was still thinking about the astral coin. Kim Tae-ho carefully blew on the astral coin a few times. Then he smiled and said, "With this fat lord's intelligence, how can these people understand me? There is no chance at all. Why would I want to get involved?" "What do you mean?" Kim Tae-ho chuckled and said, "Of the 5 nations, the great Jin nation's royal court is the strongest. The other four nations combined are not as strong as them. The great Gene Nation sends out experts, princes, princesses, and young geniuses that join the royal court. We can only walk to the longevity tree. There is a huge storm in the sky, and there are countless ferocious beasts along the way. The people of the four nations will have to fight their way over bitterly. Furthermore, they will have to deal with the strong Great Gene Nation's royal court. What chance do they have? Chapter 858. Hence, when the great Tang Nation's royal court came to ask this fat lord to be cannon fodder, this fat lord immediately rejected them. Xiao Chen's expression froze. Then he said, "Brother de Bao, I'm afraid you won't be able to refuse this cannon fodder." Kim Tae-ho was stunned for a moment before reacting. He smiled and said, "Don't look for your fat brother for this. You are strong. Naturally, you dare to go anywhere. This fat lord's body really cannot take the torture. I still have things to do, so I'll take my leave first." Patting his butt, Kim Tae-ho stood up and prepared to leave. The Sky Dome Immortal Realm was not as poetic as its name suggested. There were all sorts of ferocious beasts and spatial storms in there. If one was not careful, one might lose their life there. Xiao Chun smiled faintly, and another astral coin appeared in his hand. Then he tossed it at Fatso. "Hu Chi." Turning around, Kim Tae-ho reacted quickly and caught the astral coin. Based on his reaction, he seemed to have expected Xiao Qin to make such a move. Haha, in this world, only you, brother Xiao Qin, can keep up with this fat lord's thoughts. Fatso smiled so widely that a flower bloomed on his face. He was overjoyed in his heart. With 2 astral coins, this fat lord would be able to buy a sect in the Kunlun realm. Let's go! Xiao Qin had already figured out Fatso's game of loosening the reins only to grasp better. Naturally, he knew that the other party did not really want to reject him. Xiao Chun brought out his full power and tore space while carrying Fatso. They moved as fast as lightning. In merely half a day, they arrived at the great Tang Nation's imperial capital. When Fatso saw Xiao Chen's horrifying strength, he felt extremely excited in his heart. This transaction was definitely profitable. Not to mention the 2 astral coins, which were worth a rank 8 sex astral coin. He would definitely gain some benefits if he followed Xiao Qin to the Sky Dome Immortal Realm. Even if Kim Tae-ho did not give him any treasures, bringing Xiao Qin to the Sky Dome Immortal Realm would not be a loss for him. Thinking about the 2 priceless star coins in his pocket, Fatso could not help but feel extremely pleased. Xiao Chun was strong, but his intelligence was still a little lacking compared to the Fat Lord. Outside the Imperial Palace, Xiao Chun put on the Sky-Sea Cloak and said, "You can go in and negotiate. Don't worry, they won't be able to find me. I'll just follow you in." After saying that, he vanished. Fatso looked around and could not help saying he really disappeared. This Kunlun realm really has many treasures. "Stop dawdling. I'm right beside you. Hurry up and go." Xiao Chen's voice sounded in his mind. Kim Tae-ho was shocked and looked at it for a long time. He was completely convinced by this treasure. However, Xiao Chen thought to himself, with Xiao Chen's intelligence, he could do well in the Kunlun realm. This fat lord would definitely be able to do well there. Just as Xiao Chen thought this, he proved his identity. Immediately, a major character of the royal court came to receive him. The Jin clan was a top-tier clan in the great Tang Nation. Now it was like the sun in the sky. When the major characters heard that Fatso had changed his mind and wanted to go to the Sky Dome Immortal Realm, the major characters of the royal court hesitated. The various royal court's teams had already set off. If Fatso went now, he would not be able to help the great Tang Nation's royal court disciples. However, due to Kim Tae-ho's reputation, the major characters reluctantly agreed despite their reluctance. Xiao Qin hid himself and followed Xiao Qin to the depths of the imperial palace. There, they arrived before a tightly guarded transportation formation. This transportation formation gave off an ancient, vast, and desolate aura. There were rings of medial-grade spirit stones around the transportation formation. From the looks of it, there were at least several tens of millions of them. Fatso casually stood on the transportation formation. Xiao Qin stood beside him, but no one noticed him. Boom! The medial-grade spirit stones burned, and the ancient formation activated. A white light flashed and space twisted. Then Xiao Qin and Kim Taeho disappeared from the formation at the same time. A light flashed, and Xiao Qin and Kim Taeho appeared in the Sky Dome Immortal Realm. What would the Sky Dome Immortal Realm be like? Xiao Qin and Kim Taeho were rather curious. At the very least, they had some fantasies. However, when they arrived, they revealed disappointed expressions. Kim Taeho smiled and said, "I just knew that this rundown place is not much. I did not expect it to be so run down." Xiao Qin sized up his surroundings. The sky was primal chaos. There was no sunlight, only howling spatial storms rushing back and forth. The pieces of spatial shards were sharper than any knife. Just looking at them made him feel somewhat flustered. Countless spatial shards formed tornadoes. As they stirred, it looked like there were many man-eating, ferocious beasts hiding in the sky, opening their ferocious mouths. When Xiao Qin looked down, the air was turbid and humid. Not to mention the Kunlun realm, it was even worse than the Tianwu continent. The flowers and grass on the ground were all uneven. At first glance, one would think that they were malnourished. Xiao Qin opened his mouth and said, somewhat flabbergasted, "Speaking of which, Brother Debeo, did we come to the wrong place?" Pa! Suddenly, a palm-sized mosquito leaped out. Fatso reacted quickly. He swatted the folding fan in his hand, sending this mosquito flying far away. However, it did not die. It should be right. The great Tang Nation's royal court would not lie to me about this. "This mosquito is really extraordinarily big," Kim Taeho said with lingering fear as he watched the mosquito fly over again. Xiao Qin smiled casually and said, "The one on your butt is even bigger." A miserable shriek rang out. Fatso jumped up from the ground in pain. When he turned his head to look, he saw a black mosquito the size of his face resting silently on his butt. Its sharp and long beak pierced through his clothes like a needle, sucking happily. Fatso immediately swatted it with the folding fan in his hand. Pa! Pa! After swatting twice, the mosquito did not die. Furthermore, the mosquito that he swatted earlier also flapped its wings and flew over. 2 strands of saber chi flashed, and electric light exploded. These 2 mosquitoes were immediately blasted into pieces. Xiao Qin, who was standing at the side, had made a move. Damn! 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 Kim Taeho held his, but as he jumped up and down on the ground, shouting as though his parents had died. Buzz! 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 The air suddenly trembled, and a strong wind blew at the 2. Xiao Qin looked up and saw a large swarm of mosquitoes flying out from the grass in front. The howling wind was the result of the swarm of mosquitoes flapping their wings. "Let's go!" Xiao Qin picked up the pale Kim Taeho and soared into the air. Then he turned around and used his palm as a saber, executing the starting stance of the lightning tribulation saber technique. Wind and lightning gathering. The purple lightning talisman in Xiao Qin's sea of consciousness spun once. The shape of the saber soul and the 4 strands of golden light were instantly drawn over. When Xiao Qin chopped out with his palm, a strand of saber chi containing 90% comprehended saber intent and 40% comprehended will of thunder immediately shot out from his palm. Thunder and wind roared, and the 4 strands of purple saber chi with golden light flowing on them tore through the air, shattering the swarm of blood-sucking mosquitoes into pieces. When Xiao Qin looked carefully, he could not help but be flabbergasted. There were a few mosquitoes in there. They were actually intact, not dying from the combined attacks of the spatial shards and the saber-chi. However, they knew how powerful Xiao-Chen was. They flapped their wings and slowly flew back through the spatial shards. Xiao-Chen withdrew his gaze, and a strand of red light shot out from his forehead. He summoned out the Massacre Throne. A scarlet cloud carried the throne as it floated quietly in front. When Fatso saw the throne, he immediately rejoiced. He laughed loudly and said, "How domineering! This throne is tailor-made for this fat lord." After saying that, Fatso let go of Xiao-Chen's hand and soared into the air, landing on the throne and landing on his butt. Another blood-curdling scream rang out. The fatty clutched his buttocks and shot out from the throne. When Kim Tae-ho landed on the scarlet cloud, his complexion paled. He said, "Xiao-Chen, why do I feel that there is a hole in my butt? Blood is gushing out like a fountain." Xiao-Chen looked at the hole in Kim Tae-ho's butt, and sympathy flashed in his eyes. He said, "It's fine. You are overthinking. It is just a hole." Riding on the scarlet cloud, Xiao-Chen flew higher and higher on the throne. In the blink of an eye, he was high up in the sky, about to face that horrifying spatial storm. Up on the scarlet cloud, Kim Tae-ho, who kept turning his head around, trying to see the wound on his butt. When he saw Xiao-Chen's actions, he could not help being startled. Startled, he exclaimed, "Xiao-Chen, are you crazy? This is a spatial storm, a storm formed by fragments of space. Even Grandmaster-level martial sages can be easily torn to shreds." "I know. However, this only applies to Grandmaster-level martial sages in the Sky Dome realm," Xiao-Chen replied calmly. Then he pressed 2 fingers to his forehead, and a beam of purple light shot out. Then it split into 4, turning into 4 small golden sabers that guarded one area. The moment the sabers entered the sky, 8 tornadoes made up of spatial fragments charged at Xiao-Chen from all directions. These tornadoes looked like ferocious beasts bearing their fangs, wanting to swallow up Xiao-Chen. Suddenly, the 4 small golden sabers danced around. Beams of golden light of 4 different colors formed a screen of sabers flickering with electricity, tightly encasing the scarlet throne. The screen of golden sabers silently sliced the 8 spatial storms into countless tiny pieces. Then they vanished completely, and the throne entered the void. There were still cracks in the void, and the strong winds that came out were still extremely horrifying storms filled with hidden energy. As Xiao-Chen sat on the throne, he did not panic. With a wave of his hand, the 4 small golden sabers destroyed all the hidden energy. This stunned Fatso, who was on the scarlet cloud, and he cried out repeatedly. As Xiao-Chen moved quickly in the sky, he soon caught up with the groups. Occasionally, Xiao-Chen used his spiritual sense to check below. Finally, he saw the group of the Great Qi Nation's royal court. There were several familiar faces in this large group. When Xiao-Chen saw the state of these people and paid special attention to Yinyu's strength, he relaxed. Within you here, this group of Great Qi Nation's royal court was safe. Without any worries, Xiao-Chen moved even faster. That horrifying spatial storm was like child's play to him. With a flick of his finger, it shattered. The towering longevity tree entered Xiao-Chen's eyes. He sat on the scarlet throne and slowly descended from the sky. They slowly descended from the sky. In the end, they managed to arrive in front of the longevity tree ahead of everyone else. Chapter 859. A loud roar resounded. Before the scarlet throne landed, a berserk ferocious beast appeared below. This ferocious beast gave off a berserk aura. When it opened its mouth, it kicked up a strong wind that seemed like it could flip up the surface of the sea. Pu Ci. The 4 small golden sabers merged into one and turned into a purple talisman. Xiao-Chen stretched out his hand, and the talisman flickered and instantly broke the strong wind. When the throne landed, Xiao-Chen withdrew the talisman. A 20-meter-tall, 100-meter-long ferocious beast was chopped in half and laid on the ground. Kim Tae-ho exclaimed exaggeratedly, "This is a ferocious beast equal to a martial sage." Unexpectedly, you instantly killed it in one move." As Xiao Qin spoke, Kim Tae-ho did not stop moving. He held his butt and jumped down from the scarlet cloud. Then he quickly searched through the corpses. Soon, he found a spirit core covered in black spots. Fatso laughed loudly and paced excitedly on the ground. He said, "A martial sage-level spirit core containing immortal chi. I struck it rich this time. Even if this fat lord has another hole in but it will be worth it." Right after Fatso spoke, he saw the longevity tree bearing heavy red fruits thrust a branch at Kim Tae-ho like a golden fork at lightning speed. Its speed was even faster than Xiao Chen's. Kim Tae-ho had just obtained the spirit core and was somewhat carried away. He accidentally walked into the attack range of the longevity tree. It looked like he would not be able to dodge in time and would be pierced by the branch. Electric light flashed under Xiao Chen's feet. In the time it took for a spark to fly, he quickly dodged. Then he picked up Kim Tae-ho and retreated. Back and forth. As Xiao Chen moved quickly, pitch-black cracks appeared in space. After escaping death, Fatso heaved a long sigh. Then he put away the spirit core covered in black spots and said to Xiao Qin, "Fortunately, brother, you are fast. Otherwise, I would not have been able to escape unscathed." As Xiao Qin spoke, he did not realize that a hole had appeared on his right, but as well. Blood poured out like a fountain. There was a kind of pain that, when reached the extreme, would make one numb. Xiao Qin made a sad expression. He didn't know if Kim Tae-ho was in the same situation. The grades of the spirit trees were also divided into sage, king, emperor, and immortal. This division was similar to the grades of secret treasures. It was mainly for the convenience of trading between cultivators and the identification of treasures. The moon cassia tree was a saint-tier spirit tree, and the longevity tree was a grade higher than it. It was a king-tier spirit tree, and because of its special effect of increasing one's lifespan, it was ranked in the top 3 among the king-tier spirit trees. Regardless of cultivation level or race, a single longevity fruit could increase a person's lifespan by 100 years for the first time. Within 100 years, Xiao Chen might be able to make another breakthrough, advancing further on the path of cultivation. Its value was easy to imagine. Even in the Kunlun realm, it would be a top treasure. Xiao Chen counted carefully. There were only about 20 of the heavy red fruits on the longevity tree. They bore fruit once every 1,000 years. Such a number was truly rare. Scarlet spiritual energy wafted out of the longevity fruit, making one drool. Kim Tae-ho stared straight at it. However, he no longer dared to approach it. Clearly, this longevity tree had gained sentience long ago. Now that the longevity fruit had not ripened yet, it naturally did not allow anyone to approach. As Xiao Chen looked at the longevity fruit that was about to ripen, he entered deep thought. Before the longevity fruit matured, the longevity tree would not allow anyone to approach it. Kim Tae-ho's earlier fate was a good example of the consequences of getting close. As long as the longevity tree matured, the longevity fruit would fall automatically. As for how many fell, that would depend on luck. Sometimes 1 or 2 fell, and the longevity tree would burrow into the ground, running off to some unknown place. Naturally, such a result was not what Xiao Chen wanted. Since he was already here, he had to collect all 20 longevity fruits. Xiao Chen pushed off the ground, and his figure flashed as he flew towards the longevity tree. The peaceful, towering tree instantly came to life. Many long branches extended out endlessly, piercing through space and shooting at Xiao Chen. Electric light flickered under Xiao Chen's feet. In that instant, he executed thunder dragon steps to its limits. His figure moved so fast that one could not even see his shadow. He tried to approach the longevity tree from all directions. Cassier! After a while, Xiao Chen broke off a branch and retreated safely. He now had a rough understanding of this longevity tree strength. This longevity tree had indeed gained sentience. However, It had only gained sentience recently, and its cultivation was not deep enough. While its attacks looked fast, they were not methodical. After familiarizing himself with the longevity tree, he could easily dodge. Xiao Qin looked around. There were still some mutated, ferocious beasts eyeing this place covetously. However, they did not dare to get close to Xiao Qin. The lunar shadow saber appeared in his hand. These ferocious beasts did not dare to be impudent toward Xiao Qin. However, that did not mean that Xiao Qian would let them off. After about 7 minutes, Xiao Qin chased away all the ferocious beasts in the surroundings. Those that could not flee in time were killed by him. By the time Xiao Qin returned, the longevity fruits had not ripened yet. Xiao Qin could not help but frown. It looked like he had come too early. If he had waited any longer, the great Jin nation's cultivators would have arrived. Earlier, when Xiao Qian passed by the sky, the great Jin nation's royal court was indeed strong. Among them, there were 3 old men who had lived for countless years. Their cultivations were terrifyingly deep. Although Xiao Qin did not fear peak Grandmaster level martial sages, once the longevity fruits ripened, he would not be able to avoid being implicated by them. If things went wrong, Xiao Qian's plan to collect all the longevity fruits would be ruined. That would be a huge loss. Xiao Qin frowned and thought for a long time. Then he remembered that there were still 2 rank 3 spirit veins origins in the immortal spirit ring that had not been exhausted yet. What are you thinking of doing? Don't even think about those 2 rank 3 spirit veins origins. If you use them, there will be no more left. Ao Jiao was like a housekeeper, keeping the rank 3 spirit veins origins in the immortal spirit ring tightly. Xiao Qin smiled bitterly. He knew that Ao Jiao liked to take care of the plants in the immortal spirit ring. Keeping the spirit veins origins was for his own good. However, he had no choice but to use them now. After a long time, Xiao Qin finally got Ao Jiao to agree to take out a rank 3 spirit veins origin. Xiao Qian waved his hand, and the rank 3 spirit veins origin silently flew to the top of the longevity tree. After a while, it turned into spiritual rain and fell. The longevity tree happily absorbed the spiritual rain. The bright red skin of the longevity fruits on the tree thinned bit by bit as they grew rapidly. Fatso smiled with some heartache. Brother Xiao Qian, you are really generous. A rank 3 spirit veins origin is even more valuable than a longevity fruit. Xiao Qian smiled and did not reply. In the Sky Dome realm, a rank 3 spirit veins origin was indeed more valuable than a longevity fruit. However, in the Kunlun realm, the situation was different. If he could pick all 20 longevity fruits before the spirit tree burrowed underground, Xiao Qian would earn a lot on this trip. A fervent look appeared in Xiao Qian's calm eyes. His heart was filled with boundless anticipation. When the longevity fruits ripened, he would collect all of the 7-colored auspicious signs, giving Lu Riyue a pleasant surprise. On the way to the longevity tree, Inyu led the great Qin nation's people, killing the ferocious beasts blocking the way. The ferocious beasts here were not easy to deal with. They all had the bloodline of immortal beasts in their veins. Even as a half-sage, she did not dare to move around without fear. Fortunately, there was a peak superior grade martial sage senior in the group. Although he rarely made a move, he helped Inyu share a lot of the pressure. Aside from that senior, who was nearing the end of his lifespan, Xiao Qian was familiar with the others in the group. There was no need to mention Inyu, Feng Feishue, and Lu Riyue. As for the remaining 2, Xiao Qian had not seen them for many years. One was his half-brother, Xiao Jian, and the other was his cousin, Xiao Yulan, who once knelt down to plead for him. Feng Feishue had introduced these 2 to the Heavenly Qin School in the imperial capital. After that, they gained the appreciation of the princess and joined the Imperial Dragon Legion. Now, they were Inyu's trusted subordinates. Inyu held the grand imperial spear and brandished it. She fought a half-sage ferocious beast alone and killed it rather easily. After that, she looked up at the sky doubtfully. When Ingyu withdrew her gaze, she discovered that Lu Riyue was frowning as well, shifting her gaze away from the sky. The others also felt doubtful. Earlier, they all felt a familiar gaze sweep through them from the sky. Only that senior, who was nearing the end of his lifespan, did not feel anything. When he saw the strange expressions of the group, he said, "Don't overthink it. No one in the Sky Dome realm dares to move about in the spatial storm in the sky unless they are tired of living." Seeing the senior with the highest cultivation say this, the others did not dare to voice their opinions. Only Lu Riyue still felt confused. That gaze earlier was too familiar. It was just a flash, but it felt very real. Ingyu collected her thoughts and said, "Let's go. The people of the Great Gene Nation are already far ahead of us." The group killed the ferocious beasts along the way and continued forward. After putting in a lot of effort, they finally saw the top of the longevity tree when they looked up. The group could not help but feel gratified. Aside from the Great Gene Nation's royal court, they were the fastest. As long as they put in a bit more effort, they would be able to obtain some of the 7-colored auspicious signs. They would not have to return empty-handed. As long as they obtained a strand of 7-colored auspicious signs, their cultivation would soar significantly. If they were lucky and obtained a few more strands, their cultivation might even increase by grade. Haha. Indeed, it is as I expected. The one following closely behind is indeed you, Princess Ingyu. Before the smiles on the group's faces faded, 3 great Gene Nation princes appeared at the intersection in front, leading a group of people. There was also a superior grade martial sage in their group. However, the 3 Grandmaster-level martial sages were not with them. They must have arrived earlier. When Ingyu and the others saw this group of people suddenly appear, their expressions changed slightly. The Jing Nation's royal court wanted to delay them and monopolize the longevity fruits and 7-colored auspicious signs. The person who spoke was the great Gene Nation's first prince, Iqin. At such a young age, he had already advanced to peak superior grade martial monarch. His talent was only slightly weaker than Ingyu's. Ingyu's pretty face turned slightly cold. She said coldly, "Iqin, it is best not to be too ruthless. You schemed so much and used such despicable methods. In the end, you will not have a good ending." Chapter 860. Iqin laughed heartily. His eyes were filled with a domineering light as he said, "You are too naive. I will stop you now. So what? Let's see who will obtain the longevity fruit and the 7-colored auspicious sign in the end. You might be strong, but with the 3 of us working together, we really aren't afraid of you. If you have the ability, then come and force your way through." The senior from the Great Gene Nation, who was nearing the end of his lifespan, frowned slightly. The old man in the other side's team was clearly targeting him, not letting him off. There were also people watching Xiao, Jian, Lu Riyue, and the others. Even though the Great Gene Nation's royal court had lost their 3 strongest people, they could still suppress them. Inyu's expression turned unsettled. She had not expected the people of the Great Gene Nation to be so shameless, not giving outsiders a chance at all. Just as the longevity fruit was about to ripen, they stopped them. Suddenly, colorful lights flickered in the sky. The longevity fruit had finally ripened. Auspicious signs filled the sky as they descended. When Iqin saw this scene, he could not help but reveal a pleased expression. The 3 royal clan elders should already be near the longevity tree. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen's lips could not help but curl up. He looked at the unsightly expressions of Ingyu and the others. He laughed loudly and said, "Good, the longevity fruit has ripened. Princess Ingyu, I will stand here. Let's see how you are going to make me suffer." Right after Iqin spoke, an ear-piercing alarm rang out. Iqin's expression changed. He turned his head to look at the sky and said strangely, with the strength of the 3 seniors, Why would they send out such a distress call? I Ching could not be bothered with Yu and the others. The situation had probably taken a turn for the worse. He quickly led the group to where the longevity tree was. Xiao Jian stepped forward and asked doubtfully, "Princess, what's wrong with this group of people?" Yu thought for a while and quickly made a decision. She said, "It looks like they are in trouble. Come, let's follow them." The royal family of Jin Nation, who was initially domineering and unreasonable, suddenly changed their attitude and left in a hurry. Naturally, Yu and the others would not let go of this opportunity. They quickly followed behind. Lu Riyue did not know why, but her heart pounded heavily. She suddenly thought of a possibility. She thought of the gaze she saw on the road earlier. She had never doubted the authenticity of that gaze, even when the superior grade martial sage of the great Qi nation's royal court said that no one could walk in the Sky Dome realm. She didn't doubt that there was definitely a gaze like that standing above the 9 heavens, shuttling through the endless spatial storms, looking deeply at her. As Lu Riyue thought this, her speed increased significantly. She circulated the quintessence in her body without caring about the expenditure. Soon, she was standing shoulder to shoulder with Yu. She desperately wanted to know the answer. Was the owner of that gaze the person who had stopped to look at her in the 9 heavens, the person she had been thinking about day and night? After a while, the great Jin nation's royal court and Yu's group arrived at where the longevity tree was. When they saw the situation, clearly they were all dumbfounded. The 7-colored auspicious signs falling from the sky were collected by a fatso holding a jade bottle. The smile on his face was even brighter than the radiance of spring. The 3 Grandmaster-level martial sages of the great Jin nation's royal court were easily blocked by a mysterious man wearing a cloak. That black-cloaked man used his arms as a saber. Electric light burst out and saber chi flew everywhere. Hundreds of lightning flood dragons circled around him. As the black-cloaked man brandished his saber, the lightning flood dragons howled wildly. With a gentle palm strike, he knocked back the Grandmaster-level martial sages who wanted to charge up, not holding back at all. The 3 Grandmaster-level martial sages either attacked one after another or worked together. However, without exception, the black-cloaked man blocked all of them. When Fatso, who was above, saw the scene, he laughed loudly in delight. Then he started collecting the 7-colored, auspicious signs at an even faster speed. It looked like the auspicious signs were about to run dry. The 3 Grandmaster-level martial sages below could not help but feel even more anxious. The group of people from the great Jin nation's royal court was completely stunned. These were bona fide Grandmaster-level martial sages. Their lifespans were about to end. After a long time, they had tempered their cultivations to a very deep level. All of them were people who stood at the peak of the Sky Dome realm. However, when the 3 of them worked together, one person easily blocked them. Where exactly did this black-cloaked man come from? It's over. The auspicious signs are all gone. A youth beside the great Jin nation's first prince said with great heartache, "The main purpose of this trip had been ruined." These people were young and did not have to worry about their lifespans. Naturally, the longevity fruit would not be of much use to them. The expressions of Yu and the others changed slightly. The auspicious signs were all gone. This person was far stronger than the people from the great Jin nation's royal court. They had no chance at all. Fatso chuckled and tossed the jade bottle containing the auspicious signs to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand and caught it. His lips could not help but curl up. When he looked at the 3 old men charging up again, a cold look flashed in his eyes. Earlier, Xiao Chen was worried that he would not be able to collect all the auspicious signs if he was distracted. Hence, he could only do his best to block these 3. Now that he had obtained the auspicious signs, he no longer needed to be polite with these 3 old men. If he did not deal with them now, they would be a problem when the longevity fruits fell. Twin dragons playing with pearl. Xiao Chen used his palm as a saber and chopped with it, executing the third move of the dragon, subduing Slush. A pearl-like light struck one of the old men's chest. Before this person could react, 2 dragon-shaped saber-chi flew over and struck his chest. There was no way for him to dodge. There was a loud bang, and a bright light flashed. This twin dragons, playing with Pearl, severely injured this person. He would not be able to recover within half a year. Xiao Chen's figure flashed. He did not show any mercy. He turned around and headed for the other old man. His figure moved as fast as lightning, giving off loud bang. 7 profound fingers. That old man was startled. As he retreated in a fluster, he gathered all the heavenly sage laws in his body and formed a vast storm behind him. Then he stretched out his hand and pointed. 7 streaks of light of different colors pierced through the air, tearing cracks in the sky. Each of the streaks of light was powerful enough to shatter mountains and rivers. Under the hood, Xiao Chen's expression was as calm as still water. His figure moved forward, not slowing down at all. Just as he was about to touch the 7 beams of light, he suddenly attacked, circulating all the vital qi in his body. Xiao Chen suddenly attacked, circulating all the vital qi in his body, and attacking with his full power. A horrifying force that was infinitely close to 1,500 tons of force exploded in the air. In that instant, the world shook, and a huge black hole appeared in space. The 7 beams of light suddenly broke apart. Xiao Chen passed through the black hole. The shock wave of his fist light did not diminish at all as it struck the old man. That old man vomited a mouthful of blood and went flying back. He slid on the ground for 100 meters in a sorry state, coughing endlessly. His eyes revealed an expression of disbelief. Xiao Chen held 2 fingers together, and a beam of light shot out from his forehead. The purple lightning talisman flickered. When the remaining old man saw an electric light, a bowl-sized bloody hole appeared in his chest. A strong wind blew endlessly. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Chen knocked out the 3 Grandmaster-level martial sages one by one. The hearts of the people below all sank. Such strength was unimaginable. He did not seem like a Sky Dome realm cultivator at all. However, Xiao Chen ignored the shock of these people. His figure flashed, and he landed on the ground. Then he quietly watched the longevity fruits that were about to fall to the ground. Based on the usual pattern, not all 20 longevity fruits would fall to the ground. The longevity tree would move away on its own. Xiao Chen paused for a moment before charging at the longevity tree. Kassier! Kassier! Tree branches pierced through space, charging at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen, who had anticipated this long ago, did not panic. He dodged the countless tree branches that could easily pierce through a mountain. Then he gently plucked a longevity fruit and held it in his hand. The longevity tree was thoroughly enraged. Its branches intertwined and looked like flood dragons as they bit at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen did not clash head-on. His figure flashed as he flew upwards. Then he clenched his right hand, and another longevity fruit flew into his universe ring. Xiao Chen's agile figure brushed past the longevity tree's attack as everyone tensed up. When the 3 Grandmaster-level martial sages on the ground saw this scene, they could not help but vomit blood in frustration. The longevity fruits that they had been waiting for 10 years were picked by Xiao Chen like he was picking peaches. The 3 Grandmaster-level martial sages cursed in their hearts, hoping that the longevity tree would pierce thousands of holes in Xiao Chen and kill him without a complete corpse. However, things did not go as they wished. Xiao Chen kept brushing shoulders with danger. The group could only watch as the longevity fruits dwindled, unable to do anything about it. Pu-si-ai! Pu-si-ai! With only 3 longevity fruits remaining, the longevity tree could no longer endure Xiao Chen's plundering. It sank down, and its huge trunk sank into the ground with a flash of light. How could Xiao Chen let the longevity tree do as it pleased? In the time it took for a spark to fly, he punched a deep pit in the ground and quickly dove in. After a while, Shao Qin flew back with a piece of the longevity tree's spiritual wood branch in satisfaction. At the last moment, Shao Chun reacted quickly and put away the remaining 3 longevity fruits. Seeing Shao Qin appear, the great Jin nations, people glared at Shao Chun with bloodshot eyes. However, they did not dare to say anything. This fellow who suddenly appeared messed up their plans. Originally, they had planned to monopolize the 7-colored auspicious signs and the longevity fruits that fell to the ground. However, they did not manage to obtain anything. Furthermore, the 3 Grandmaster-level martial sages were beaten half to death. When Lu Riyue and the others saw this scene, they did not show anything on their faces. However, they felt very carefree in their hearts. In the first place, they had always been bullied by the great Jin nation's royal court in this Sky Dome immortal realm. In the earlier scene, the first Prince Yi Qin's attitude was even more overbearing, causing everyone to feel a great deal of anger in their hearts. "Are you still not going to scram?" Shao Qin shouted coldly as he looked coldly at the first prince and the others, who showed extreme dissatisfaction in their eyes. Shao Qin did not have a good impression of this group of people. He had just used the spirit vein's origin to accelerate the ripening of the longevity fruits. In the end, 3 old men came to cause trouble. Shao Qin had no choice but to seek Kim Taeho's help. Given Fatso's character, he would definitely not help for free. Seeing the hostile Shao Qin under the hood, the great Jin nation's people quickly left. They feared that if they stayed any longer, Shao Qin would really get angry. In Yu's group sighed silently. This person did not even care about the great Jin nation's royal court. Why would he be polite to them? To avoid humiliating themselves, they turned and left. Chapter 861. Everyone long time no see. Do you really not recognize Shao Qin anymore? Shao Qin smiled faintly and took off his hood. Then he calmly called out to Lu Riyue, Feng Feishue, Inyu, Xiao Yulan, and Xiao Jian. The few of them turned around one by one and saw a delicate and pretty face with a headscarf. Those familiar facial features and the sharpness between his brows were just like in the past. Without a doubt, he opened his mouth wide, unable to speak for a long time. Indeed, it is him. Tears welled up in the corners of Lu Riyue's eyes. All sorts of emotions welled up in her heart. The person she loved had really returned. There was some disbelief in Xiao Yulan's eyes. Everything she saw was real. Cousin Shao Qin, who had knelt 3 times to express his gratitude, had actually reached such a height today. Xiao Jian was even more in disbelief than him. A bitter smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Who could have imagined that the person who had left his clan 7 years ago would grow to such a level? Shao Qin did not say anything more. He slowly walked over and wiped away the tears at the corners of Lu Riyue's eyes. Lu Riyue blushed. Her flirtatious face was filled with bashfulness. The others smiled faintly and tacitly left this place. A bitter smile appeared on Xiao Yulan's face. Although she had known long ago that cousin Shao Qin had made his choice, Xiao Yulan knew that cousin Shao Qin had made his choice. But now that he saw it with his own eyes, he couldn't help but feel the pain in his heart. Inyu walked over and patted Xiao Yulan's shoulder. She smiled and said, "Lass, don't be sad. This fellow is just SOS. There's no need to feel sad for him." Feng Feishue walked over leisurely, dressed in men's clothes. She still looked as carefree and at ease as before. She even knew Xiao Yulan's heart and knew how hard Xiao Yulan had worked over the years. He hugged her tightly in his arms and patted her back. When he closed his eyes, there seemed to be a column of water at the corner of his eyes. Xiao Jian curled his lips and sat on the ground, bored, as he played with the sword in his hand. Now he was no longer that petty person from back then. There was no irreconcilable grudge between him and Shao Qin in the first place. However, when he saw Shao Qin's current achievements, he still felt a little emotional. Fortunately, after so many years, Shao Chun had come to terms with it. He only hoped to advance to martial sage in the Sky Dome realm and protect his clan. Shao Chun glanced over and saw Shao Qin talking to Lu Riyue in the distance. He looked at Shao Chen's changed expression. He could not help but think of his father in Mo City. Shao Xiong had never mentioned it, but everyone knew that he had been forced to chase Shao Qin away back then. No one could understand the pain he was suffering. Shao Jian would never forget the complicated expression on Shao Xiong's face when he heard the news that Shao Chun ranked first on the True Dragon ranking. He wondered if his father's solemn face would reveal a trace of a smile if he knew of his second brother's current achievements. Shao Chun and Lu Riyue did not chat for long before they arrived at where Ingyu and the others were. When Shao Chun saw the familiar faces, a smile appeared on his calm face. His old friends were all there, his old friends were all well, and his elegance was still the same. Nothing had changed. This was especially so for Shao Chen's cousin, Shao Yulan, whom he had not seen for many years. Back then, when he first came to this world in Mo City, the memories were still fresh in Shao Chen's mind. As for Shao Jian, as time passed, the two of them had grown. When Shao Chun looked at Shao Jian now, he realized that he was much more mature than before. Ingyu glanced at the stupefied Shao Chen. Then she clenched her fist and threatened, "Don't even mention that 7-colored auspicious signs. You are only giving them to Lu Riyue alone. This princess is someone who holds grudges. If you leave in the future, don't blame me for playing some tricks." Shao Chun smiled faintly and took out the jade bottle containing the 7-colored auspicious signs. Multicolored lights filled the air. When counted carefully, there were at least 200 7-colored auspicious signs. No matter how the 5 of them divided them, they would not be able to finish them. This auspicious sign is useless to me. You can take whatever you want based on your cultivation. Don't exceed what you can bear. The auspicious signs contained a large amount of pure spiritual energy. However, everyone's cultivation was limited and could not absorb too much. Otherwise, they might explode and die. The others did not hesitate either. They had arrived here after much difficulty, all for the sake of these 7-colored auspicious signs. Inyu's cultivation was the highest. She took 57-colored auspicious signs. Shao Jian and the others were between inferior-grade martial monarchs and medial-grade martial monarchs. The gap between them and Inyu was too great. They only took 10 or so auspicious signs. Shao Qin carefully put away the remaining 100-odd auspicious signs. Then he looked at Kim Taeho, who was staring at him anxiously. Then he tossed over 2 more of the spirit cores that he obtained from the martial sage, ferocious beasts. The sage grade spirit cores contained a lot of immortal qi. With Shao Chen's current cultivation, after he removed the impurities and absorbed them, his cultivation would improve significantly. "Little friend, can this old man exchange for a longevity fruit with you?" When the old man from the great Qin nation's royal court saw Shao Qin collect the 20 longevity fruits, he felt envious. When he saw the strength that Shao Qin displayed earlier, he had already despaired. Now that he discovered that Inyu and the others had a close relationship with Shao Qin, he immediately felt tempted. He did not have many years left to live. 1 longevity fruit could increase his lifespan by 100 years. The temptation of this went without saying. Shao Qin glanced at Inyu and saw that she was looking at him as well. Clearly, this old man had a high status in the great Qin nation's royal court. Shao Chun handed over a longevity fruit straightforwardly. There is no need to stand on ceremony. The great Qin nation's royal court has taken great care of my Shao clan. This longevity fruit is a token of appreciation from the younger generation. There is no need to exchange it. After the old man obtained the longevity fruit, he beamed with joy. When he heard Shao Chen's polite words, he felt even more grateful. Shao Chen swept his gaze over the group and thought for a while. Then he said, "Big brother, cousin Yulan, I have some things I would like to speak to you in private." The three went to the side and chatted for a while. Then Xiao Chun briefly described his experiences. Xiao Yulan and Xiao Jian were both deeply moved. "Cousin Xiao Qin, will you return to our Xiao clan this time?" Xiao Yulan asked with some anticipation in her eyes. Xiao Qin did not know what to say. Along the way, he had been conflicted over whether to return or not. What exactly was Father Xiao Xiong afraid of, with the great Qi nation's royal court taking care of him? Could there really be someone in the Sky Dome realm who would dare to make a move on the Xiao clan? When Xiao Qin addressed Xiao Qin as big brother, all the barriers in Xiao Jian's heart disappeared. He said, "I more or less know about Father's worries back then. Back then, the ancestors of the Xiao clan were too tyrannical in their actions, thinking that they were the only one in the world. If anyone was dissatisfied, they would directly eliminate them. They offended too many factions. If not for some good karma, the Xiao clan, which had lost its foundation, would not have survived to this day. When the Xiao clan first entered the Sky Dome realm, they could be considered a tyrant with many experts. However, all of them were mysteriously killed in the end. It was a ghastly sight. It was only in recent years, when the blue dragon martial spirit disappeared, that the Xiao clan truly stabilized. Your appearance reminded Father of the tragedy of our seniors. With the current Xiao clan, it is simply impossible for us to face those enemies. We had no choice but to chase you out." Xiao Chun did not object to this. Back then, when he revealed his blue dragon martial spirit at Bushan Palace, the Grandmaster level martial sages of the three sovereign noble clans immediately tried to kill him. One could imagine how deep the impression that the Qing Emperor had left on these people back then was. However, if that was all, Xiao Qian would not care about it. With the three sovereign noble clans and the Hao Qian Emperor protecting him, that would be enough. What Xiao Qian was worried about was not these enemies in the open, but those hidden in the dark, not showing any signs of doing so. In the end, Xiao Qian was still too weak. If he had the strength of the Qing Emperor back then, why would he fear small fries? What sovereign noble clans? Actually, it does not matter whether I return or not. I do not blame Father, nor do I want to make things difficult for him. If the Xiao clan really faces a calamity of destruction, my heart will not be able to bear it for the rest of my life. Even when he wanted to return home, he had so many worries. Xiao Qian could not help but feel bitter in his heart. After arriving in the Kunlun realm, he had fought many battles along the way. Practically no one in the Sky Dome realm could stop him. However, when he thought about the Kunlun realm's sovereign noble clans, any Grandmaster-level martial sage could easily kill him. What did all this count for? He had to break through to the 7th layer of the Purple Thunder Divine incantation. Otherwise, not to mention a Grandmaster-level martial sage, any superior grade martial sage of the Kunlun realm would be able to kill him. Then, Xiao Qian took out some of the sage grade secret treasures that he won at the auction and handed them to the two. Even if a sage grade secret treasure could not bring out much of its might, it could still significantly increase the strength of a cultivator. With these sage grade secret treasures, the overall strength of the Xiao clan should be able to rise significantly. After a while, Xiao Qin took out several high-ranked secret manuals. These were all obtained from the spatial rings of the enemies he killed in the Kunlun realm. Xiao Qian did not think much of them. However, to the current Xiao clan, they were undoubtedly supreme treasures. After thinking for a while, Xiao Qian took out several spatial rings filled with superior grade spirit stones and handed them over. Spirit stones, secret manuals, and secret treasures. With these, the Xiao clan should be able to develop rapidly within 10 years. They would definitely be able to lay a firm foundation. Xiao Qin had a vague plan in his heart. After he advanced to Martial Emperor, he would rebuild the Dragon's Gate and let the Xiao clan return to the Kunlun realm openly, back to where they belonged. This plan was very far away, so Xiao Qin could only do it step by step. He could not reveal too much either. Right now, all he could do was let the Shao clan disciples lay a firm foundation. When Shao Jian and Shao Yulan saw the things that Shao Qin took out, they were deeply shocked. Even in the Kunlun realm, some of the weaker sects would treat these as treasures. Now that Shao Chun handed these things to the two of them, the overall strength of the Shao clan would experience a qualitative increase in a short period. Seeing the joy on the two's faces, Shao Chun revealed a heartfelt smile. He raised his head and looked at Feng Feishue, Ingyu, and his beloved Lu Riyue. Even if Shao Qin did not need to break through to the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 7th layer, this trip back was worth it. Even if he lost to the outstanding talents of the Kunlun realm, it was still worth it. Some things could not always be measured in terms of value. Kinship, friendship, love, no matter how deep they were buried in one's heart, if one did not think about them or think about them, one would not be able to erase the imprint they left in one's heart. The group gathered together. Shao Chun got Lu Riyue to return with Ingyu and the others first, to wait for him at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. There were still some places in the Sky Dome Immortal realm that Shao Qin wanted to visit. After the others left, Shao Qin slowly walked over to the pit in the ground. This was where the longevity tree had burrowed into the ground. When Shao Chun punched it, he discovered something interesting while chasing the longevity tree.